That's just crazy. That's just wild. Yo, yo, uh, yeah. like, no, you know what? No. You ever know something and it's just funny to you? It's just funny? Yeah. That shit is just funny. I love when I'm just knowing. You know what I mean? You just be knowing. You don't gotta say nothing because you know it's true. Because if it wasn't, you wouldn't be knowing. Yeah. Damn, the more you do this, the more you do start putting on a show. I don't know why. Because I did. Like, when did this start becoming something it wasn't? That's what really confused me. Like, so, I wanted a donut, and then I didn't get that donut. So, I went back to the donut shop, tried to get the flavor again, and then they said, you as a customer cannot buy this donut. They never said that. They just said, we don't got any fresh ones. Even though you can see them baking the fresh ones right there. And that's fine with me, because I'm stupid. And I didn't realize that when they say they're baking the fresh donut for 20 years, you're never getting a fresh donut. You're never getting a fresh donut that's currently being baked. Does that make sense? You can wait your entire life because that does not matter. Hmm. Because you're waiting for the donut shop. They're not waiting for you. You the one who wants the donut. You get that? You're the one who has to open your wallet and buy that fucking donut. Should I apologize just outright? Like if I just apologized everyone. You know what I mean? Should I apologize that what am I even apologizing about? None of y'all, none of y'all have ever told me what I should be apologizing about. But it's like I'm the bad guy because I'm not apologizing. I didn't apologize to you because why didn't I apologize to you? Hmm. We were kids. I was dumb. Like we were in middle school. I didn't even know. I didn't even know you cared about me like that. Like I was just being cool. Like, okay, sorry. Sorry the last time I said hi to you. Sorry I didn't say hi to you the last time. Even though you just dubbed me now, so it's like I'm sorry. I shouldn't I shouldn't think this highly of myself in other people's lives. Um, I'm sorry for not calling you. I feel like we could have been more friendly with each other. I still have your letters and stuff. I don't look at them as often, but it's just nice knowing they're there. Hmm. I'm not sorry about that. Like, I feel like I realized there was something wrong when it happened, and then that was it, right? Or wasn't it? Because when we did, we parted ways, right? I thought everything was cool, and then it wasn't. It's almost like that's how it goes. Everything is cool until it's not. Or am I the one who's bugging here? Am I the one who's like trying to figure out how to eat donuts without being robbed by the manager? It's like, I just want a jelly filled donut with glaze on it. Is that too hard to ask? Nah, I'm not sorry about that either. I didn't do anything. I, like, you said no. I said okay. And that was that. If it wasn't a big deal, we could have talked about it. But we didn't. Isn't it? Isn't that funny how there's a reoccurring pattern where we don't talk about the shit that bothers us because it's a big deal, but it's not really a big deal? But it's only a big deal if you say it is because other people think it's a big deal? Isn't that funny? Isn't jealousy funny? Duh. I'm not sorry for her either. You got a whole man's. Fuck that nigga too. But like, damn, I would have been tight if you were flirting with a nigga like me at work. Jesus, yo. Jesus. For hours? And you know me. Like, I've been mad, bro. Whatever. Um, yeah, nah, it's not your fault. I just didn't realize that. See, that's why I did it. Like, back then, I was pussy. Like, back then, mad niggas, it's like some spec ops shit. But now I realize that they all, like, they either thought I was creepy or and wild balls for just doing it over and over again after getting dubbed. Like, it's just funny because I never got a no. I just got dubbed. It's like, is that a no? Should I not try? Should I be flirting with the other girls I work with? So I'll get a yes? Like, what? How do you get a yes? How do you get a yes? I am consciously, with my brain, choosing you to receive this donut. God damn. That's not even fair. I do feel bad because that's awkward. But, like, I don't feel bad for him. I feel bad for you because, like, there's weirdos like that who lie and who act like they feel one way when they feel another way. And you're supposed to differentiate their feelings from reality. And it's just, god damn, that shit sucks. And I'm sorry you have to deal with that. But at the same time, I guess now I understand that you put yourself around them. So, like, I'm not sorry. Like, he just got a fly ass friend. Like, come on. You don't ever have to deal with me again. Um, Same goes for you. Like, you had a whole man's too. Um, Honestly, it just hurts. Cause like, when you first realize at such a young age that people just don't give a fuck about you, but it's not that people don't give a fuck about you. It's that like jealousy and cruelty just because other people aren't you make you do stupid shit. It's just sad to me. And it's always affected me because I've never really had anything to be jealous about. Other than being pretty smart or dumb. Like, I feel stupid sometimes. But that's because I choose to do stupid shit. I'm choosing to do this. I'm choosing to be a sexy nigga. I don't gotta do nothing to be a bad guy but this. I could be out toting hammers, but I'm sitting in my crib on Twitch. I'm shooting a movie. Shooters shoot. So I'm here on the internet. It's just funny. Hearing pussies on the internet talk about revolution and murder, but I'm only a bit, I'm only able to do all of this because people are so pussy. You can't say shit to them. Think about that. Think about that. But now that one guy is able to make 100% of all the money he earns, now there's revolution. Now there's murder. Yeah, okay. Do it then, nigga. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the clout. I cared about the donuts. I wanted a fucking donut. If I gotta die for that damn donut, I'ma die for the donut. Like, is that not is that not clear? Was that not the only thing I've said the entire time? But it's clear that's not how the donut shop works. So I'm gonna make bread. Cause it's that easy now. You should support your local donut shop and your local bakery and your local weed dispensary and your local cinema studio or film lot or movie theater. Support the things you like, except when they're hurting other people. Whether or not they're rich or poor, don't be a jealous loser. It's that simple. Get your bread up. Oh yeah, I forgot. I was reading this shit out loud. Wow. Him, Meredith, to look out over most of USA. Area code 6026. His shadow did not yet reach the downtown regions of the city Tucson. Not yet quite. Of sounds in the arid hush were only a faint and occasional hot wind, the blurred sound of the wings of sometimes an insect, some tentative trickling of loosened grit and small stones moving farther down the upslope behind, and as well the sunset over the foothills and mountains behind him, such a difference from the watery and somehow sad spring sunsets of southwestern Quebec's Papinois regions, where his wife had need of care. This, the sunset, more resembled an explosion. It took place above and behind him, and he turned some of the time to regard it. It, the sunset, was swollen and perfectly round and large, radiating knives of light when he squinted. It hung and trembled slightly like a vicious drop about to fall. It hung just above the peaks of the Tortolita foothills behind him, and slowly was sinking. Maris sat. Wait, okay. Maris sat alone and blanket lapped in his customized fauteuil de Roland wheelchair. Okay. On a kind of outcropping or shelf about halfway up, waiting, amusing himself with his shadow. As the lowering light from behind came at an angle, more and more acute, Gauss' well-known Brockengespenst phenomenon, ghostly light and monstrous shadow phenomenon, particularly to certain mountains. Part 1 of Gauss' Faust, the Walpurgisnacht, six-toed danceathon on the Harzbrocken, in which there is described the classic Brockengespensten phenomenon. Just means specter or wraith. Enlarged and distended, his seated shadow far out overland, so that the spokes of his chair's rear wheels cast over two whole counties gig- below gigantic asterisk shadows, whose fine black radial lines he could cause to move by playing slightly with the wheel's rubber rims, and his head's shadow brought to much of the suburb West Tucson a premature dusk. He appeared to remain concentrated on his huge shadow play as gravel, and then also breath sounded from the steep hillside back above him. Grit and dirty stones cascading onto the outcropping and gushing past his chair and off the front lip, and then the unmistakable yelp of an individual's impact with a cactus somewhere up behind. But Meredith, he had all the time, without turning, watched the other man's clumsy sliding descent's own mammoth shadow. Wait, what? Without turning, watched the other man's clumsy sliding descent's own mammoth shadow, cast as far east as the Rincon Range, just past the city specified services. No, just past the city Tucson, and could see the shadow rush in west toward his own unspecified services. M. Hugh steeply descended, falling twice and cursing in USA English until the shadow collapsed nearly into Maris' monstrous own. Another yelp took place at the unspecified services field operatives fall and slide. The last several meters carried him upon his bottom down onto the outcropping, and then nearly all the way out and off it. Meredith having to release the machine pistol under his blanket to grab Steeply's bare arm and halt this sliding. Steeply's skirt was pulled obscenely up, and his hosiery full of runs and stubs of thorns. The operative sat at Mar's feet, glowing redly in the backlight, legs hanging over the shelf's edge, breathing with difficulty. Mar smiled and released the operative's arms. Stealth becomes you, he said. Go shit in your chapeau, Steeply wheezed, bringing up his legs to survey the hosier's damage. They spoke for the most part USA English when they met like this, covertly, in the field M. Portier. Maris Superior in the AFR, the leader of the wheelchair assassins, USA Cell, and the former boyhood friend of Remy Maris' late older brothers, both struck and killed by trains. Les Assassins de Fatoi Roland, aka Wheelchair Assassins, pretty much Quebec's most dreaded and rapturous anti-ONAN terrorist cell. See note 304 sub. Had wished Maris to require they interface always in okay. They spoke for the most part in USA English when they met like this covertly in the field M. Fortier. Oh, what? English. They spoke for the most part USA English when they met like this covertly in the field. Oh. In the field, M. Fortier had wished Merit to require that they interface always in Quebecois French, as for a small symbolic concession to the AFR on the part of the office and unspecified service, which the Quebecois separatist left referred to always as BSS, the Bureau de Services Sans Specificity. Eh. Maris watched a column of shadow spread again out east over the desert's floor, as Steeply got a hand under himself and rose, a huge and well-fed figure tottering on heels. The two men sent together a strange Brocken Geschment shadow out toward the city Tucson, a shadow round and radial at the base and jagged at the top, from Steeply's wig becoming uncombed in his descent. Steeply's gigantic prosthetic breasts pointed in widely different directions now, one nearly at empty sky. The matte curtain of sunset's true dust shadow was moving itself, very slowly in across the Rincon and Sonora Desert east of the city Tucson, still many kilometers from obscuring their own large shadow. But once Marith had committed not just to pretend to betray his assassins de Fatuel Roland in order to secure advanced medical care for the medical needs of his wife, but to in truth do this betray perfidiously, now pretending only to M. Fortier and his AFR superiors that he was merely pretending to feed some betraying information to BSS. Isn't it fun to pretend? I love pretending. In other words, M. Fortier and the AFR, as far as the Merit knew, believed that Merit was functioning as a kind of triple agent or duplicitous double agent at 40 years' direction. Merit had pretended to approach BSS seeking to trade knowledge of the AFR's anti-ONAN activities for protection and medical care for his hideously ill wife. Merit only, as far as Merit can know, Merit and a very few BSS operatives know that Merit is now only pretending to betray. Wait, what? So it says Activities for protection and medical care for his hideously ill wife only. As far as Meredith can know, Meredith and very few BSS operatives know that Meredith is now only pretend to betray. That M. Steepley is fully aware that Meredith responds to BSS's summonses with what Meredith and Steepley can reasonably posit, aware and Steepley and BSS are aware that Fortier is aware of Meredith's meeting with Steepley. M. Steepley is fully aware that Meredith responds to BSS's summonses with what M. Fortier believes is his full knowledge that M. Fortier is not as far aware. Wait, what? Meredith and very few BSS operatives know that Meredith is now only pretend to betray. So he's betraying them. That M. Fortier believes in his Fortier's full knowledge that M. Fortier, okay. M. Fortier believes in his full knowledge that M. Fortier is not, as far as they can know, aware that Steepley and BSS are aware that Fortier is aware M believes is his full knowledge that M is not aware that Steepley and BSS are aware that M is aware of Maris meeting with Steepley, and that Maris' own violent death will be the smallest of his Maris problems, should his Mont-Tremblant countrymen come to suspect that even-numbered total of his fine loyalties. So basically, this guy knows that Maris backstabbing him, and at the same time, he's not saying anything because it might be worse if other people find out. Damn, that sucks. Once this decision, Meredith was without all power, served now at the pleasures of the power of Steepley and the BSS of Hugh Steepley. And now they spoke mostly in USA English of Steepley's preference. In fact, Steepley's Quebecois was better than Maris' English, but c'était la guerre, as one says. Meredith sniffed slightly. Thus so we now are both here. He wore a windbreaker and did not perspire. Steepley's eyes were luridly made up. The rear area of his dress was dirty. Some of his makeup had started to run. He was forming a type of salute to shade his eyes and looking upward, behind them, at what remained of the explosives and trembling sun. How in God's name did you get up there? How in God's name did you get up here? Meredith slowly shrugged. As usual, he appeared to Steepley as if he were half asleep. He ignored the question and said only, shrugging, "My time is finite." Steepley had also with him a woman's handbag or purse. "And the wife?" he said, gazing upward as yet. "How's the wife doing?" "Holding her own weight, thank you," Maris said. His tone of his voice betrayed nothing. And so thus, what is it your office believe they wish to know? Steepley tottered on a leg as he removed one shoe and poured from it grit. Nothing terribly surprising. A bit of razzle-dazzle up northeast in your so-called ops area. Certainly you heard. Maris sniffed. A large odor of inexpensive and high alcohol perfume came not from Steepley's person, up from his handbag, which failed to complement his shoes. Maris said, "Dazzle. Dazzle? As in, a civilian type individual receives a certain item. Don't tell me this is news to you guys. Not on interlace pulse. Not on interlace pulse. This item arrives not on interlace pulse. This item arrives via normal physical mail. We sure you heard, Remy. A cartridge copy of a certain, let's call it between ourselves, the entertainment, as in the mail without warning or motive, out of the blue. From somewhere blue? The BSS operative had perspired also through his robe and his mascara had melted to become whorish. A person with no political value to anybody except that the Saudi Ministry of Entertainment made one the hell of shrill stink. The medical attaché, the specialist of digesting you refer to? Mara shrugged again, in that maddening francophone way that can mean several things. Your officers wish to ask, was the entertainment cartridge disseminated through our mechanisms? Don't let's waste your finite time, Amy, old friend, Steeply said. The mischief happens to occur in metropolitan Boston. Postal codes route the package through the desert southwest, and we know your dissemination scheme's routing mechanism is proposed for somewhere between Phoenix and the border down here. Steeply had worked hard at feminizing his expressions and gestures. It would be a bit starry-eyed of OUS not to think of your distinguished cell. No, beneath Maris' windbreaker was a sport shirt whose breast pocket was filled with many pens. He said, "Us, we don't have the information on even casualties from this blue dazzle you speak of." Steeply was trying to extract something stubborn from inside his other shoe. Upwards of 20 Remy, out of commission altogether. The attaché and his wife, the wife of a Saudi citizen. For more ragers, all with embassy cards, couple neighbors, or something. The rest mostly police before word got to a level they could stop police from going in before they killed the power. Local police forces, gendarmes, the local constabulary, the minions of the law of the land. The local constabulary were shall we say, unprepared for an entertainment like this. Steeply even removed and replaced his pumps in the upright on one leg, bringing other foot up behind his bottom way of a feminine USA woman. But he appeared huge and bloated as a woman, not merely unattractive, but inducing something like sexual despair. He said, the attaché had diplomatic status, Remy. Mid-East Saudi, said to be close to minor members of the royal family. Mara sniffed hard, as if congested of the nose. A pulling, he said, but also a compatriot of yours, Canadian citizenship, born in Ottawa to Arab immigrants, visa-less a resident in Montreal, and services without specificity, wishes maybe to ask where their below-the-surface connections that make the individual not such a civilian unconnected. To ask of us, would the AFR wish to make of him the example? Steeply was removing dirt from his bottom, swatting himself on the bottom. He stood more or less directly over Merritt. Merritt sniffed. We have neither digestive medicals nor diplomatic entourages on any list for action. Mayor sniffed. We have neither digestive medicals nor diplomatic entourages on any list for action. You have personally seen AFR's initial lists, nor in particular Montreal civilians. We have, as one will say, larger seafood to cook. Steeply was looking out over the desert and city, also as he swatted at himself. Steeply was looking out over the desert and city, also as he swatted at himself. He seemed to have noticed the dispensed phenomenon of his own shadow. Marith, for some reason, pretended again to sniff the nose. The wind was moderate and constant, and of about the temperature of a USA clothes dryer set on low. It made the shrill whistling sounds also sound of the blowing grit. Weeds of tumbling like enormous hairballs rolled often across the interstate highway of 1 to 10 far below. Their spectacular perspective, the reddening light on vast tan tone, and the oncoming curtain of dusk, the further elongation of their monstrous agnate shadows, all was almost mesmerizing. Neither man seemed able to look at anything but the vista below. Merritt could simultaneously speak in English and think in French. The desert was the tawny color of the hide of a lion. They were speaking without looking at one another, facing both the same direction. This gave their conversing an air of careless intimacy, as of old friends at the Cartridge Viewer together, or a long married couple. Merritt thought this as he opened and closed his upheld hand, making over the city Tucson a huge and black blossom open itself and close itself, and steeply raised his bare arms and held them out and crossed them, maybe as if signaling for distant aid. This made X's and pedentive V's over much of the city of Tucson. Still Remy, but born in the hated Bayou, Ottawa, this civilian attaché and connected to a major buyer of Transgrid Entertainment, and follow-up out of the Boston office reports possible indications of the victim's prior possible involvement with the widow of the auteur we both know was responsible for the entertainment in the first place. The Samizdat. Prior? Steeply produced from his handbag Belgian cigarettes of a many mm and habitually female type. Film director's wife taught out at Brandeis where the victim done his residency. The husband was on board over at AEC, and different agencies' background checks indicated the wife was fucking just about everything with a pulse, with a slight pause of which Steeply could excel, particularly a Canadian pulse. Involvement of sexuality is what you're meaning, then, not politics. Steeply said, the wife herself, a Quebecois, Remy from Lislet County. Chief Tyne says 3 years spent on Ottawa's personas qui un list. There's such a thing as political sex. I have said to you all we know. Civilians as individuals warning to ONAN are not our desires. This is known by you. Maris' eyes looked nearly closed, and your tits, they have become cockeyed. I will tell you. Services without specificity. They have given you ridiculous tits, and now they point differently. Steeply looked down at himself. One of the false press, surely false. Surely they would not go as far as the hormonal Maris thought, nearly touched the chins of Steeply when his looking down produced his double chins. I was asking to secure personal verification is all, he said. My general sense at the office is the brass consider the whole incident a stumper. There's theories and counter theories. There are even anti-theories, positing error, mistaken identity, sick hoax. His shrugging with his hands on the prosthet- prosthet- prosthesis, pro- prosthesis appeared not at all Gaelic. Still 23 human beings lost for all time. That'd be some hoax, no? Mayor sniffed, asked to verify by our mutual M. Tyne. How you call him? Rod, a god? Rodney Tyne, Senior Chief of Unspecified Services, acknowledged architect of ONAN and Continental Reconfiguration, who held the ear of the White House of USA, and whose stenographer had long doubled as the stenographer cum June Fil de Vendredi of M. Duplessis, former associate coordinator of the Pan-Canadian Resistance, and whose passionate, ill-disguised attachment to this double I don't know how to pronounce amanuensis amanuensis 1 mil Lurie Pedic of Lamartine County, Lislet, Quebec, gave rise to these questions of the high-level loyalties of Tyne, whether he doubled intra-ONAN sobriquet for acting as a double agent, similarly with tripling, and so on. For Quebec, out of the love for Luria, or tripled the loyalties, pretending only to divulge secrets while secretly maintaining his USA fealty against the pull of an irresistible love, it was said. The Remy, it was clear that Steeply could not fix his breast directions without pulling down severely his décolleté, which he was shy to do. He produced from his handbag sunglasses to put on the sunglasses. They were embellished with rhinestones and looked absurd. Rod the god. Maris forced himself to say nothing of their appearance. Steeply tried with several matches to light a cigarette in the wind. The encroachment of true dusk began to erase his wig's chaotic shadow. Electric light began to twinkle in the Rincon foothills east of the city. Steeply tried to somewhat cup his body around the match for shelter for the flame. It's a herd of feral hamsters, a major herd, thundering across the yellow plains of the southern reaches of the great concavity in what used to be Vermont. It's a herd of feral hamsters, a major herd, thundering across the yellow plains of the southern reaches of the great concavity in what used to be Vermont, raising dust that forms a uramic-hued cloud with somatic shapes interpretable from as far away as Boston and Montreal. Excuse me. The herd is descendant from two domestic hamsters set free by a Waterton, New York boy at the beginning of the experialist migration in the subsidized year of the Whopper. The boy now attends college in Champaign, Illinois, and has forgot that his hamsters were named Ward and June. Huh? The herd is descended from two hamsters. The herd is descended from two domestic hamsters set free by a New Yorker at the beginning of the experialist migration in the subsidized year of the Whopper. Now the kid is in college and has forgotten his hamsters were named Ward and June. And now these hamsters are a major herd thundering across the plains of Vermont. The noise of the herd is tornadic, locomotive, locomotival. The expressions on the hamster's whiskered faces is businesslike and implacable. It's that implacable herd expression. They thunder eastward across pedal-ferrous terrain that today is fallow denuded to the east, dimmed by the fulvous cloud. The hamster's send-up is the vivid, verdant, ragged outline of the annularly over-fertilized forest of what used to be central Maine. All these territories are now property of Canada. With respect to a herd of this size, please exercise the sort of common sense that, come to think of it, would keep you. With respect to the herd of this size, please exercise the sort of common sense that, come to think of it, would keep your thinking man out of the southwest concavity anyway. Feral hamsters are not pets, they mean business. Wide berth advised. Carry nothing even remotely vegetable-ish if in the path of a feral herd. If in the path of such a herd, move quickly and calmly in a direction perpendicular to their own. If American north not advisable, move south calmly and all haste toward some border metropolis, Rome NNY or Glen Falls NNY or Beverly MA say, or those bordered points between them at which the giant protective acme fan atop the hugely convex protective walls of anodized lucite hold off the drooling and piss-colored bank of teratogenic concavity clouds and move the bank north away jaggedly over your protected head. With respect to a herd of this size, please exercise the sort of common sense that, come to think of it, would keep your thinking man out of the southwest concavity anyway. Feral hamsters are no pet. They mean business. Wide berth advised. Carry nothing even remotely vegetable-ish if in the path of a feral hamster. If the path of such a herd, move quickly and calmly in a direction perpendicular to their own. If American north not advisable, move south calmly and in all haste towards some border metropolis. Rome, New York, or Glen Falls, New York, or Beverly, Massachusetts, say, or those bordered points between them at which the giant protective acme fans atop the hugely convex protective walls of anodized lucite hold off the drooling and piss-colored bank of teratogenic concavity clouds and move the bank well back north away jaggedly over your protected head. I don't get it. This nigga's too smart for me. The heavy-tongued English of Steeply was even more difficult to understand. With a cigarette in the mouth, he said, and you'll of course report this little interference of you and me right back to 40 air. Meyer shrugged, and sure. Steeply got it lit. He was a large and soft man. Some type of brutal U.S. contact sport athlete now became fat. He appeared to Meredith to look less like a woman than a twisted parody of womanhood. Electrolysis had caused patches of tiny red pimples along his jowls and upper lip. He also held his elbow out, the arm holding the match for lighting, which is how no woman lights a cigarette who is used to breasts and keeps the lighting elbow in. Also steeply teetered ungracefully on his pump heels on the stone's uneven surface. He never for a moment turned his back completely at Meredith as he stood on the lip of the outcropping. And Meredith had his chair wheels clamps now locked down tight and a firm grip on the machine pistol's pebbled grip. Steeply's purse was small and glossy black. And the sunglasses he wore had womanly frames with small false jewels at the temples. Marith believed that something in Steeply enjoyed his grotesque appearance and craved the humiliation of the field disguises his BSS superiors requested of him. Steeply now looked at him in probability, behind the dark glasses, and also that I just right now asked you if you'd report it, and that you said bien sûr. Marith's laugh had the misfortune to sound false and overhearty, whether or not sincere. He made a mustache of his finger, pretending for some reason to stifle a need to sneeze. You verify this because of why? Steeply scratched under the hem of his blond wig, stupidly dangerously. The thumb of his hand that held the cigarette. Well, You're already tripling, Remy, aren't you? Or would it be quadrupling? We know Fortier and the AFR know you're here with me now. But do my brothers on wheels know that you're knowing this? That they have sent me to pretend I double? Maris sidearm, a Sterling UL 35 9mm machine pistol with a Magnaport silencer, did not have a safety. Its fat and texture of Pebble's grip was hot with Maris' palm, and in turn caused Maris' palm to perspire beneath the blanket. From Steeply there merely was silence. Maris said, "Have I merely pretended to pretend to betray?" The thing of importance seems to be that Maris AFR superiors believe he only is pretending to betray them in order to secure advanced U.S. cardiac prosthetic technology for his wife, but that, in fact, he really is betraying them, the superiors, his country, probably actually for the medical tech, and is thus only pretending only to pretend. And is thus only pretending only to pretend. The thing of importance seems to be that Maris AFR superiors believe he only is pretending to betray them in order to secure advanced U.S. cardiac prosthetic technology for his wife, but that in fact he really is betraying them, the superiors, his country, probably actually for that medical tech, and is thus only pretending only to pretend. So he's just doing it. My stomach hurt. And the desert USA's light had become now sad, more than half the round sun gone behind the tortillas. Only now the chair wheels and steeply stick legs cast shadows below the dust line, and these shadows were becoming squat and retreating back up toward the two men. Steeply did a brief pretend Charleston, playing with his legs, shadows, nothing personal. You know that. It's an obsessive caution. Who was it? Who once said we get paid to drive ourselves crazy? The caution thing. You guys in time, your Duplessis always suspected he tried to hold back on the information he passed sexually to Loria. Maris shrugged hard and abruptly. M. Duplessis had now passed away from life under circumstances of almost ridiculous suspicion. Again with a false-sounding laugh and an inept burglary and grip, indeed. Both men were silent. Steeply left arm had on it a nasty mesquite scratch. Marith could observe. Marith finally glanced at his watch. The dial illuminated in his body shadow. Both men's shadows were now climbing the steep incline, returning up to them. Me, I think that we go about our affairs in a more simple manner than your BSS office. If M. Time's betrayal were incomplete, we of Quebec would be aware, because of Luria. Meredith pretended to fuss with his blanket, rearranging it. But yes, the caution, Luria would be aware. Steeply stepped gingerly up on the edge and tossed out his cigarette stub. The wind caught the stub and it soared slightly upward from his hand, moving east. Both men were silent until the butt fell and hit the dark mountain sign below them, a tiny bloom of orange. Their silence then became contemplative. Something tight in the air between them loosened. Meredith no longer felt the sun on his skull. Dust settled about them. Deeply had found his triceps scratch and twisted the flesh of his arm to examine it. His rugged lips rounded with concern. Year of the Depend adult undergarment. Tuesday, 3 November. Enfield Tennis Academy. AM drills, shower, eat, class, lab, class, eat, prescriptive grammar exam, lab, class, conditioning, run, PM drills, play challenge match. Upper body circuits and weight room, sauna, shower, slumped to locker room floor with other players. To even realize what they're sitting, their feel, what they are sitting, their feeling is unhappiness, or to even feel it in the first place. 1640 hours. The Com AD building's male locker room is full of clean upperclassmen in towels after PM matches. The players' hair wet combed and shining with barbicide. Pemulus uses the comb's big tooth end to get that wide furrowed look the kids from Alston favor. Hal's own hair tends to look wet, combed even when it's dry. So Jem Troll says, looking around. So what do you think? Pemulus lowers himself to the floor by the sinks, leaning up against the cabinet where they keep all the disinfectants. He has this way of looking wearily to other side of him before he says anything. Was there like a central point to all that, Trost? The examiner is talking about the syntax of Tolstoy's sentence, not about real unhappy families, Hall says quietly. John Wayne, as do most Canadians, lifts one leg slightly to fart, like the fart was some kind of task, standing at his locker, waiting for his feet to get dry enough to put on socks. There is a silence. Showerheads dribble on tile, steam hangs, distant ghastly sounds from tea-shat over in one of the stalls of the showers. Everyone stares in the middle distance, stunned with fatigue. Michael Pemulus, who can stand about 10 seconds of communal silence, tops, clears his throat deeply, and sends a loogie up and back into the sink behind him. The plate mirror caught part of it quivering flight. Hal closes his eyes. Tired, someone exhales. Orthostes and John N.R. Wayne seem less fatigued than detached. They have really top players' way of shutting the whole neural net down for brief periods, staring at the space they took up, hooded in silence, removed for a moment from the connectedness of all events. Right then, Trost says, pop quiz. Pop test question. Most crucial difference for Elite tomorrow between your historical broadcast TV set and a cartridge-capable TP. Disney R Elite teaches ETA, History of Entertainment 1 and 2, as well as a certain high-level esoteric optics thing you need permission of Institute to get into. The cathode luminescent panel, no cathode gun, no phosphenic screen, 2 to the screen's diagonal width in cm lines of resolution total. You mean a high-def viewer in general, or a specifically TP component viewer? No analogs, Struck says. No snow. No faint weird like ghostly double next to UHF images. No vertical roll when planes fly over. Analogs v digitals. You referring to broadcast as in network versus a TP or network plus cable versus a TP? Did cable TV use analogs? What like pre-fiber phones? It's the digital. Lath has the word he uses for the shift from analogs to digital. That word he uses about 11 times an hour. What did pre-fiber phones use exactly? The old tin can and string principle. Seminal, he keeps saying it. Seminal, seminal. The biggest advance in home communication since the phone, he says. And home entertainment since the TV itself. Leith might say the right capable CD for entertainment. He's hard to pin down if you get him on entertainment. Qua entertainment. The Dizzle says you use your own judgment, Pemulus says. Axford took it last year. He wants an argument made. He'll skewer you if you treat it like there's an obvious answer. Plus there's an interlaced digitizer instead of an antenna. With a TP, Jim Struck says, squeezing at something behind his ear. Graham Yardguard. Radar is checking his underarm for more hair. Freer and Shaw might be asleep. Plus, there's an interlaced digitizer, de-digitizer, instead of an antenna with a TP. Jim Struck says squeezing at something behind his ear. Graham Yardguard radar is checking his underarm for more hair. Freer and Shaw might be asleep. Steesh has pulled his towel down slightly and is fingering the deep red abdominal stripe. A jock's waistband leaves. Steesh has pulled his towel down slightly and is fingering the deep red abdominal stripe. A jock's waistband leaves. Boy, if I ever become president, the first thing's to go elastic. Trost pretends to shuffle cards. Next item, next like flashcard. Define acutance. Anybody. A measure of resolution directly proportional to the resolved ratio of a given pulse's digital code, Hal says. The inkster has the last word once again, says Struck, which invites a chorus. The halster, halorama, halation. Radar says, a halo-shaped exposure pattern around light sources seen on chemical film at low speed, the most angelic of distortions. Struck says, well, be like vying for the seats all around ink tomorrow. Hal shuts his eyes. He can see the page of text right here, all highlighted, all yellowed out. He can scan the page, rotate it, fold the corner down, and clean under his nails with it, all mentally. Leave him alone, Pemulus says. Freer opens his eyes. Do a dictionary page for us, man. Ink. Steve says leave him be. It's all on half nasty. Hal is placid about getting his balls smacked around. They all are. He does his share of chop busting. Some of the little kids who take their showers after the upperclassmen are hanging around listening. Hal sits on the floor, quiescent, chin on his chest, just thinking it's nice finally to breathe and get air. The temperature had fallen with the sun. Meredith listened to the cooler evening wind roll across the incline and desert floor. Meredith could sense or feel many million floral pores begin slowly to open, hopefully of dew. The American steeply produced small exhalations between his teeth as he examined his scratch of the arm. Only one or two remaining tips of the digite spikes of the radial blades of the sun found crevices between the tortillous peaks and probed of the roof sky. There was a slight and dry, locationless rustling of small living things that wished to come out at night, emerging. The sky was violet. This guy is dead. I wonder, I don't know. Everyone in the locker rooms got a towel around his waist, like a kilt. Everyone except Steesh has a white ETA towel. Steesh uses his own sort of trademark towels, black ones. After a silence, Steesh shoots some air out through his nose. Jim Struck picks liberally at his face and neck. There are one or two sighs. Peter Beak and even Ingersoll and Kent Blott, 12, 11, 10, are up sitting on the blonde wood benches that run in front of the locker rows. Sitting there in towels, elbows on knees, not taking part. So is Zoltan Shezmentihali, who's 16, but speaks very little English. Idris Arslanian, new this year, ethnically vague, 14, all feet and teeth, is a shadowy, lurky presence. Just outside the locker room door, poking the non-Caucasoid snout in occasionally, and then withdrawing, terribly shy. Each ETA player in 18 and unders has like 4 to 6 14 and under kids he's supposed to keep his more experienced wing over. Look out for the more the ETA administration trusts you. The younger and more generally clueless the little kids in your charge. Charles Tavis instituted the practice and calls it the Big Buddy System. It's in the literature he sends new kids' parents, so the parents can feel their kids not getting lost in the institutional shuffle. Beak, Blott, and Arslanian are all in Hal's Big Buddy group for YDAU. He also, in effect, has Ingersoll, having traded Todd Postlethwaite to Oxford off the books for Ingersoll. Because Trevor Oxford found he so despised the Ingersoll kid for some unanalyzable reason that he was struggling against a horrible compulsion to put Ingersoll's little finger in the gap by the hinges of an open door and then very slowly close the door. It came to Hal almost in tears, Axford had. Though technically Ingersoll is still Axford's and Postlethwaite's Hal's. Postlethwaite, the great lobber, has a weird young old face and little white lips that laughs into a sucking reflex under stress. In theory, a big buddy's somewhere between an RA and a pro-rector. He's there to answer questions, ease, bumpy transition, show ropes, act as a liaison with Tony Nwangji and Tex Watson and the other pro-rectors specializing in little kids. Be somebody they can come to off the record, a shoulder to climb up on a footstool and cry on. If a 16 and under gets made a big buddy, it's kind of an honor. It means they think you're going places. When there's no tournament or travel, etc. Big buddies get together with their quartet sextet in small group private twice a week. In the interval between PM challenge matches and dinner, usually after saunas and showers, and a few minutes of sitting slumped around the locker room sucking air. Sometimes Hal sits with his little buddies at dinner and eats with them. Not often, however. The savvier big buddies don't get too overly close with their LBFFs. Don't let them forget about the unbridgeable gap of experience and ability of general status that separate FFs from upperclassmen who've hung in and stuck it out at ETA for years and years. Give them more to look up to. The savvy big buddy doesn't rush in or tread heavy. He holds his own ground and lets his suppliants realize when they need his help and come to him. You have to know when to tread in and take an active hand, and when to hang back and let the littler kids know. Let the literal, let the littler kids know. Learn from the personal experience they'll have to learn from inevitability. If they want to be able to hang, okay. You have to know when to tread in. Oh, the savvy big buddy doesn't rush in or tread heavy. He holds his own ground and lets the suppliants realize when they need his help and come to him. You have to know when to tread in and take an active hand and when to hang back and let the littler kids learn from the personal experience they have to learn from, inevitably, if they want to be able to hang. Every year, the biggest source of attrition besides graduating 18s is 13 to 15s who've had enough and just can't hang. This happens, the administration accepts it. Not everyone's cut out for what's required of you here. Some people can't hang. Though CT makes his administrative assistant lateral Alice more dry. Though CT makes his administrative assistant. Though CT makes his administrative assistant lateral Alice more drive, the protector's bats trying to ferret out data on littler kids' psychic states so he can forecast probable burnouts and attritive defections. So he'll know how many slots he and admissions have to offer incoming for the next term. Big buddies are in a tricky position, requested to keep the prorectors generally informed about who among their charges seems shaky in terms of resolve capacity for suffering and stress, physical punishment, homesickness, deep fatigue, but at the same time wanting to remain trustworthy, confidential, shoulder and wing for their little buddies, most private and delicate issues. But at the same time wanting to remain a trustworthy, confidential shoulder and wing for their little buddies' most private and delicate issues. Though he, too, has to struggle with a strange urge to be cruel to Ingersoll, who reminds him of someone he dislikes, but can't quite place. How, on the whole, rather like being a big B, he likes being there to come to, and likes delivering little, unpretentious mini lectures on tennis and ETA, pedagogy and tradition, and getting to be kind in a way that costs him nothing. Sometimes he finds out he believes something that he doesn't even know he believed until it exited his mouth in front of 5 anxious little hairless, plump, trusting, clueless faces. The twice weekly, more like once weekly as things usually pan out, group interfaces with his quintet are unpleasant only after a particularly bad PM session on the court, when he's tired and on edge, and would rather go off by himself and do secret stuff in underground ventilated private. Jim Troll feels at his grands. John Wayne is of the sock and a shoe school. Tired ortho again sighs. He pronounces it tard. Tired. I'm tired. What's the difference? To a man now, the upperclassmen are down, slumped on the locker room blue crush carpet, their legs straight out in front of them, toes pointing out that distinctive morgue angle, their backs up against the blue steels of the lockers, careful to avoid the sick, sharp little louvered glued anti-mildew vents at each locker's base, All of them look a bit silly naked because of their tennis tans, legs and arms, the deep sienna of quality catcher. All of them look a bit silly naked because of their tennis tans. Leg, fuck. All of them look a bit silly naked because of their tennis tans, legs and arms, the deep sienna of a quality catcher's mitt from the summer. The tan just now, this late, starting to fade, but feet and ankles of toad belly white, the white of the grave, with chests and shoulders and upper arms more like off-white. The players can sit shirtless in the stands at tournaments when they're not playing and get at least a bit of theroic sun. The faces are the worst, maybe, most red and shiny. Some still deep peeling from 3 straight weeks of outdoor tournaments in August, September. Besides Hal, who atavistically dark complected anyway. The ones here with the least bad piebald coloring are the players who can tolerate spraying themselves down with lemon pledge before outdoor play. It turns out lemon pledge, when applied in pre-play stasis and allowed to dry to a thin crust, is a phenomenal sunscreen, UV rating like 40 plus, and the only stuff anywhere that can survive a 3-set sweat. No one knows what junior player at what academy found this out about pledge years back, or how. Rather bizarre discovery circumstances are envisioned. The smell of sweat wet pledge out on the court makes some of the more delicately constituted kids sick, though. Others feel sunscreen of any kind to be unconscionably pussified, like white visors or on-court sunglasses. So most of the ETA upperclassmen have the vivid shoe and shirt tans that give them the classic look of bodies hastily assembled from different body parts, especially when you throw in the heavily muscled legs and usually shallow chests and the 2 arms of different sizes. Tard, Xviii says. Group empathy is expressed via size, further slumping, small spastic gestures of exhaustion, the soft clanks of skulls back against the lockers, thin steel. My bones are ringing the way sometimes people say their ears are ringing. I'm so tired. I'm waiting till the last possible second to even breathe. I'm not expanding the cage till driven by necessity of air. So tired it's out of tired's word range, Pemulus says. Tired just doesn't do it. Exhausted, shot depleted, says Jim Struck, grinding at his closed eye with the heel of his hand. Cash totaled. Look, Pemulus, pointing at Struck, is trying to think. A moving thing to see. Beat. Warn the heck. Warn the fuck all out is more like it. Wrung dry, tuckered out, more dead than alive. None even come close, the words. Word inflation. She says, rubbing at his crew cut so his forehead wrinkles and clears. Bigger and better. Good, greater, greatest, totally great. Hyperbolic and hyperbolicer, like great inflation. Should be so lucky, says Struck, who's been on academic probation since 15. Stice is from a part of the southwest Kansas that might as well be Oklahoma. He makes the companies that give him clothes and gear give him all black clothes and gear, and his ETA cognomen is the darkness. Hal raises his eyebrows at Stice and smiles. Hyperbolicer? My dad is a boy. He have said tuckered out'll do just fine. Tuckered out, I'll do just fine. Whereas here we are sitting here needing whole new words and terms. Phrases and clauses and models and structures, Troll says, referring again to a prescriptive exam everyone but Hal wishes now to forget. We need an inflation generative. We need an generative grammar. Keith Freer makes a motion as if taking its units. But how? Whereas here we are sitting here, needing whole new words and terms, phrases and clauses, and models and structures, Troll says, referring again to a prescriptive exam everyone but Hal wishes now to forget. We need an inflation generative grammar. Keith Freer makes motion as if taking his unit out of his towel and holding it out to at Troll. Generate this. What? How does it generate this? I don't know. Generate this. Need a whole new syntax for fatigue on days like this. Struck says ETA's best minds on the problem. Whole thesauruses digested, analyzed, makes a sarcastic motion. How? One semion that still works fine is holding your fist up and cranking at it with the other hand, so the finger you're giving somebody goes up like a drawbridge. Oh, it's broken. Oh shit, it's broken. Oh no, what do I do? Though, of course, Hal's mocking himself at the same time. Everybody agrees it speaks volumes. Idris Arslanian's shoes and incisors appear briefly in the doorway's steam, then withdraw. Everyone's reflection is sort of cubist in the wall's shiny tilling. The name handed down paternally from an Umbrium 5 generations past, and now much diluted by any Yankee. A great-grandmother with Pima tribe Indian SW blood and Canadian crossbreeding. Hal is the only extant in Cadenza who looks in any way ethnic. His late father had been a young man darkly tall, high, flat, Pima tribe cheekbones, and very black hair, brow creamed, back so tight there'd be a kind of enforced widow's peak. Himself had looked ethnic, but he isn't he isn't extant. He isn't extant. Himself look ethnic, but he isn't extant. Hal is sleek, sort of radiantly dark, almost otterlish, only slightly tall, eyes blue but darkly so, and unburnable even without sunscreen. His untanned feet, the color of weak tea, his nose ever unpeeling but slightly shiny. His sleekness isn't oily so much as moist, milky. Hal worries secretly that he looks half feminine. His parents' pregnancies must have been all out chromosomatic wars. Hal's eldest brother Oren had got the mom's Anglo-Nordic, Nordo-Canadian phenotype, the deep-socketed and lighter blue eyes, the faultless posture and incredible flexibility. Oren was the only male anybody at ETA ever heard of who could do a fully splayed cheerleader type split. The rounder and more protrusive zygomatics. Hal's next oldest brother, Mario, doesn't seem to resemble much of anyone we know. Or, Hal's next oldest brother, Mario, doesn't seem to resemble much of anyone they know. On most of the non-travel days that he doesn't big buddy with his charges, Hal will wait till most everybody's busy in the sauna and shower and stow his sticks in the locker and stroll casually down the cement steps into the ETA's systems of tunnels and chambers. He has some way he can casually drift off and have quite a while go by before anyone even notices his absence. He'll often stroll casually back into the locker room on the floor, just as people are slumped on the floor in towels discussing fatigue, carrying his gear bag and substantially altered in mood, and going when most of the littler kids are in there peeling pledge husks off their limbs and taking their turn shower using one of the kids' shampoo out of the bottle shaped like a cartoon character. Then hike the head back and apply Visine in a shat-free stall. Gargle and brush, and floss and dress, usually not even needing to comb his hair. He carries Visine AC, mint-flavored floss, and a traveler's toothbrush in a pocket of his Dunlap gear bag. Nah, you know what's crazy? One year, I didn't even have a backpack. I brought a duffel bag to school. Like, I brought a duffel bag to school for a whole year because I didn't have a backpack. Ted Shat, big into oral hygiene, regards Hal's bags, floss, and brush as an example to them all. So tired it's like I'm almost high. But not pleasantly high, Troll says. It'd be pleasanter tiredness high if I didn't have to wait till fucking 1900 to start all the studying. Steve says. You think Stitt could at least not turn up the juice? You think Stitt could at least not turn up the juice the week before midterms? You think that the coaches and the teachers could try and get together on their scheduling? It'd be like a pleasant fatigue if I could just go up after dinner and hunker on down with the mind in neutral and watching something uncomplex. Not having to worry about prescriptive forms or accutants. Kick back, watch something with chase scenes and lots of stuff blowing up all over the place. Relax, do bongs, kick back, look at lingerie catalogs, eat granola with a great big wooden spoon. Struck says wistfully. Get laid. Just get one night off too, like R&R. Slip on this old environmental suit and listen to some atonal jazz. Have sex, get laid. Bump uglies, do the nasty, haul ashes. Find me one of them Northeast Oklahoma drive-in burger stand waitresses with the great big huge titties. Those enormous pink white French painting tits that sort of like tumble out. One of those wooden spoons so big you can barely get your mouth around it. Just one night to relax and indulge. Pemulus belts out two quick verses of Johnny Mathis's Chances Are, left over from the shower, then subsidizes to examine something on his left eye. Shaw has a spit bubble growing to such exceptional size for just spit that half the room watches until It finally goes the same moment Pemulus breaks off. Evan Ingersoll says we get off Saturday for Independence Day Eve, though, the board said. Several upper-class heads are cocked up at Ingersoll. Pemulus makes a bulge in his cheek with his tongue and moves it around. Flubba flubba, Steese makes his jowls fly around. We get off classes is all. Drills and challenges go merely on, Delint says, Freer points out. But no drill Sunday, before the gala. But still matches. Every junior player presently in this room is ranked in the top 64 continentally, except Pemulus, Lardley, and Blott. Every junior player presently in this room is ranked in the top 64 continentally, except Pemulus, Yardley, and Blott. There be clear evidence that T-Shat's still in one of the toilet stalls off the showers, even if Hal couldn't see the tip of one of Shat's enormous purple shower thongs under the door of the stall right by where the shower area entryway cuts into his line of sight. Something humble, placid even, about inert feet under stall doors. The defactory posture is an accepting posture. It occurs to him. Head down, elbow on knees, the fingers laced together between the knees. Some hunched, timeless, millennial type of waiting, almost religious. Luther's shoes on the floor beneath the chamber pot, placid, possibly made of wood. Luther's 16th century shoes awaiting epiphany. The mute cusant suffering of generations of salesmen in the stalls of train station Johns, heads down, fingers laced, shined shoes inert, awaiting the acid gush. Women's slippers, centurions, dusty sandals, dock workers, hobnailed boots, Pope's slippers, all waiting, pointing straight ahead, slightly tapping, huge shaggy-browed men, in skins hunched just past the firelight circle, with weighted lees in one hand, waiting. Shat suffered from Crohn's disease. Chronic inflammation of the terminal ileum and adjacent tissues, named in Dubois' honor of Dr. Crohn in B.S. 1932. Chronic inflammation of the terminal ileum and adjacent tissues, named in Dubois' honor of Dr. Crohn in B.S. 1932. A bequest from his ulcerative colitic dad, and had to take carminative medication with every meal, and took a lot of guff about his digestive troubles, and had developed all things arthritic gout too, somehow, because of Crohn's disease, which had settled in his right knee and caused him terrible pain on the court. Freers and tall Paul Shaw's rackets fall off the bench with clatter, and Beak and Blott move fast to pick them up and stack them back on the bench. Beak one-handed because the other hand is keeping the towel fastened. His towel fastened. Because so that's was let's see, Struck says. Freers and tall Paul Shaw's rackets fall off the bench with a clatter, and Beak and Blot move fast to pick them up and stack them back on the bench. Beak one-handed because the other hand is keeping his towel fastened. Because so what? Because so that's what? Because so that was. Let's see. Struck says. Pemulus loves to sing around tile. Struck around. Struck's hitting his palm with a finger for either emphasis or ordinal counting. Close to let's call it an hour. Run for the A squads. An hour 15 drills. 2 matches back to back. I only played one, Trost injects. Had a miserable fever in the AM, Delint said to throttle down today. Folks that went 3 sets only played one match, Spodek and Kent for an instance. Fuck. God damn it, yo. Because, so that's what, let's see. Pemulus loves to sing around tile. Struck's hitting his palm with a finger for either emphasis or ordinal counting. Close to let's call it an hour run for the A squads and an hour 15 drills. 2 matches back to back. I only played one, Troth injects. Had a measurable fever in the AM, Delint said to throttle down today. Folks that went 3 sets. Folks that went 3 sets only played one match, Spodek and Kent for an instance, she says. Funny how his health always seems to rally when AM drills get out, Freer says. Like conservatively, 2 hours for the matches conservatively, then half an hour on the machines under fucking Loach's beady Browns, sitting there with the clipboard. Let's call it 5 hours of vigorous, non-stop, straight-out motion, sustained and strenuous exertion. Stitch determined this year we ain't singing no silly songs at Port Washington. John Wayne hasn't said one word this whole time. The contents of his locker are neat and organized. He always buttons his shirt all the way up to the top button as if he were going to put on a tie, which he doesn't even own. Ingersoll's also getting dressed out of his underclassman's small square locker. Steve says, except they seem to forget we're still in our puberty. Ingersoll is a kid seemingly wholly devoid of eyebrows. As far as Hal can see, speak for yourself, Darkness. I'm saying how stressing the puberdizing skeleton like this. It's real short-sighted, Stice voices rises. Am I supposed to do when I'm 20 and the show playing non-stop and I'm skeletally stressed and injury-prone? Dark's right. A curled bit of cloudy old pledge husk and a green thread from a strip of gauze text wrap are complexly entwined in the blue fibers of the carpet near Hal's left ankle, which ankle is faintly swollen and has a blue tinge. He keeps flexing the ankle whenever it occurs to him. Struck and Troll spar briefly with open hands, feinting and bobbing their heads, both still seated on the floor. Yeah. Houndstiesh, Troll, Struck, Radar, and Beak are all rhythmically squeezing tennis balls with their racket hands, as per Academy mandate. Struck's shoulders and neck have furious purple inflammations. Hal had also noticed a boil of the inside of Shat's thigh when Ted sat down. Hal's face reflection just fits inside one of the wall's tiles opposite, and then if he moves his head slowly, his face distends and comes back together with an obstacle twang in the next one. The post-shower The post shower community feel the post shower community feeling is dissipating. Even Evan Ingersoll looks quickly at his watch and clears his throat. Wayne and Shaw have dressed and left. Freer, a major pledge devotee, is at his hair in the mirror. Pemulus also rising now to get away from fear, feet and legs. Freer's eyes have a protrusive wideness to them that the axe handle says makes Freer always look like he's getting shocked and throttled. And time in the PM locker room seems a limitless depth. They all been just here before, just like this, and will be again tomorrow. The light saddening outside, a grief felt in the bones, a sharpness to the edge of the lengthening shadows. I'm thinking it's Tavis, Freer says to them all in the mirror. Where there's excess work and suffering can when the, where there's excess work and suffering can fucking Tavis be far behind. No, it's Stitt, Hal says. Stitt was short a few wickets out the old croquet set long before he got hold of us men, Pemulus says. Peemster and Hal, halation and Pemurama. Freer purses his lip. Freer purses his little lips and expels air like he's blowing out a match, blowing some tiny grooming remnant of the big mirror's glass. Shit just does what he's told like a good Nazi. What the hell is that supposed to mean? That wasn't funny. That was just funny. It wasn't funny. It was just funny. Ask a Stish, who's well known for asking how high, sir, when Stitt says jump. Now feeling at the carpet around him for something to throw at Freer. Ingersoll tosses Stish a wops up towel, trying to be helpful. But Stish's eyes are on Freer in the glass, and the towel hits him in the head and sits there, on his head. The room's emotions seem to be inverting themselves every couple of seconds. There's half cruel laughter at Stish as Hal struggles to his feet, rising in careful stages, putting most of his weight on his good ankle. Hal's towel falls off as he does his combination. Struck says something that's lost in the uproar of in the roar of high pressure toilet. Feminized American stood at The feminized American stood at a slight angle to Meredith upon the outcropping. He stared out at the dust shadow they were now inside, and as well the increasingly complicated twinkle of the USA City Tucson, seemingly slackly transfixed, steeply in the way vistas too large for the eye to contain transfixed persons in a kind of torpid expectation. Mara seemed on the edge of sleep. Even the voices deeply had a different timbre inside the shadow. They say it's a great and maybe even timeless love. Rod Tynes for you, your Loria person. Meredith grunted, shifting slightly in the chair. Steeply said, the sort that gets sung about, the kind people die for, and then get immortalized in song. You got your ballads, your operas, Tristan and Isolde, Lancelot and what's her name, Agamemnon and Helen, Dante and Beatrice. Merritt grunted, shifting slightly in his chair. Steeply said, the sort that gets sung about, the kind people die for, and then get immortalized in song. You got your ballads, your operas, Tristan and Isolde, Lancelot and what's her name, Agamemnon and Helen, Dante and Beatrice. Maris' drowsy smile continued upward to become a wince. Narcissus and Echo, Kierkegaard and Regina, Kafka and the poor girl afraid to go to the post box for the mail. Interesting choice of the example here. The mailbox, Steeply pretended to chuckle. Meth came alert. Take off your wig and be shitting inside it. Hugh steeply BSS, and the ignorance of you appalls me. Damn, I want Eggo waffles so bad. Like chocolate chip Eggo waffles. God damn. Interesting choice of example here. The mailbox steeply pretended to chuckle. Meredith came alert. Hugh steeply BSS, and the ignorance of you appalls me. Agamemnon had no relation with this queen. Menelaus was husband, him of Sparta, and you mean Paris, Helen in Paris, he of Troy. Steeply seemed amused in the idiotic way. Paris and Helen, the face that launched vessels, the horse, the gift which was not a gift, the anonymous gift brought to the door, the sack of Troy from inside. Meredith rose slightly on his stumps in the chair, showing some emotions at this, steeply. I am seated here appalled at the naivete of history, of years, of your nation. I am seated here appalled at the naivete of history of your nation. Paris, Helen were the excuse of the war. All the Greek state, in addition to the Sparta and Menelaus, attacked Troy because Troy controlled the Dardanelles and charged the ruinous tolls for passage through, which the Greeks, who would like very dearly the easy sea passage for trade with the Oriental East, resented with fury. It was for commerce, this war. The one quotes love. One does not quote of Paris for Helen merely with the excuse. Steeply, genius of interviewing, sometimes affected more than usual idiocy with mirth, which he knew baited mirth. Everything reduces itself to politics for you guys. Wasn't that whole war just a song? Did that war even really take place that anybody knows of? The point is that what launches vessels of war is the state and community in its interests. Meredith said without heat, tiredly, you only wish to enjoy, to pretend for yourself that the love of one woman could do this, launch so many vessels of alliance. Steeply was stroking the perimeters of the mesquite scratch, which made his shrug appear awkward. I don't think I'd be so sure. Those around Rod the God say the man would die twice for her. Say he wouldn't have to even think about it. Not just that he'd let the whole ONAN come down if it came to that, but die. Mara sniffed twice, without even having to pause and think. Steeply said, stroking at his lips electrolytic rash, in a ruminative fashion. It's the reason most of us think he's still there. Why, he's still got President Gentle's ear. Divided loyalties are one thing, but if he does it for love, well, then you've got a kind of tragic element that transcends the political, wouldn't you say? Steeply smiled broadly down at Meredith. Meredith's own betrayal of AFR, for medical care, for the conditions of his wife, for, Steeply might imagine a think, love of a person, a woman. Tragic saying, as if Rodney Tyne of no specificity were not responsible for choosing it, as the insane are not responsible, said Martha quietly. Steeply now was smiling even more broadly. It has a kind of tragic quality, timeless, musical. It has a kind of tragic quality, timeless, musical. That how could Gentle resist? Mare's tone now became derisive. Despite his legendary sang-froid in matters of technical interviews, these sentiments from a person who allows them to place him in a field as an enormous girl with These sentiments from a person who allows them to place him in the field as an enormous girl with tits at the cockeyed angle, now discoursing on tragic love. Steeply, impassive and slankly ruminative, picked at the lipstick of the corner of his mouth with the littlest finger, removing some grit, gazing out from their shelf of stone. But sure, the fanatically patriotic wheelchair assassins of southern Quebec scorn this type of interpersonal sentiment between people. Looking now down at Marith, no, even though it's just this that has brought you Tyne, yours for Luria to command, should it ever come to that. Marith had settled back on his bottom in the chair. Your USA word for fanatic, fanatic. Do they reach you? It comes from the Latin word temple. It is meaning literally worshipper at the temple. Oh Jesus, now here we go again. As if you will give the permission, does this love you speak of M. Tyne's grand love? It means only the attachment. Tyne is attached, fanatically. Our attachments, our temple, what we worship, no, what we give ourselves to, what we invest with faith. Steeply made motions of weary familiarity. Here we go. Marith ignored this. Are we not all of us fanatics? I say only what you, of the USA, only pretend you don't know. Attachments are of great seriousness. Attachments are of great seriousness. Choose your attachments carefully. Choose your temple of fanaticism with great care. Attachments are of great seriousness. Choose what you are Choose your attachments carefully. Choose your temple of fanaticism with great care. What you wish to sing of as tragic love is an attachment not carefully chosen. Die for one person, this is craziness. Persons change, leave, die, become ill. They leave, lie, go mad, have sickness, betray you, die. Your nation outlives you, a cause outlives you. How are your wife and kids doing out there, by the way? What a dick. You USAs do not seem to believe you may each choose what to die for. Love of a woman, the sexual, it bends back in on itself, makes you narrow, maybe crazy. Choose with care. Love of your nation, your country, and people, it enlarges your heart. Something bigger than the self. Steeply laid a hand between his misdirected breasts. Oh, Canada. Marith leaned again forward on his stumps. Make amusement all you want, but choose with care. You are what you love, no? Yeah. You are what you love, no? You are, completely and only, what you would die for without. As you say, the thinking twice. Yeah, hell yeah. Yo, come on. Come on, think about it. Yeah. You are completely and only what you would die for without. As you say, the thinking twice. You, M. Hugh Steeply, you would die without thinking for what? The AFR's extensive file on Steeply included mention of his recent divorce. Marith already had informed Steeply of his existence of this file. He wondered how badly Steeply doubted what he reported. Marith, or whether he assumed it's true simply, though the persona of him changed. Steeply's car for all field assignments was his green sedan, subsidized by a painful ad for aspirin upon its side. The file knew this stupidity. Marith was sure the sedan, with its aspirin advertisement, was somewhere below them, unseen. The fanatically beloved car of M. Hugh Steeply Steeply was watching or gazing at the darkness of the desert floor. He did not respond. His expression of boredom could be real or tactical. Either of these. Maris said, "This is not the choice of most supreme importance. Who teaches your USA children how to choose their temple? What to love enough not to think 2 times?" This from a man who, Marith was willing that his voice not rise. For this choice determines all else. No, all others, all other of your, you say, free choices follow from this. What is your temple? What is our temple? What is this temple? Thus, for USA's, what is it? When you fear that, you must protect them from themselves. If wicked Quebecois conspire to bring the entertainment into their warm homes, Steeply's face had assumed the openly twisted, sneering expression which he knew well Quebecois found repellent on Americans. But you assume it's always a choice, conscious decision. This isn't just a little naive, Remy. You sit down with your little account ledger and soberly decide what to love. Always the alternatives are. What if sometimes there is no choice about what to love? What if Temple comes to Muhammad? What if you just love without deciding? You just do. You see her, and in that instance, you are lost to sober account keeping and cannot choose but to love. Marisneff held disdain. Then in such a case, your temple is self and sentiment. Then in such an instance, you are a fanatic of desire, a slave to your individual, subjective, narrow self-sentiments, a citizen of nothing. You become a citizen of nothing. You are by yourself, alone, kneeling to yourself. A silence ensued this. Maris shifted in his chair. In a case such as this, you become the slave who believes he's free. The most pathetic of bondage, not tragic, no songs. You believe you would die twice for another, but truth would die only for you, for your alone self, its sentiment. Another silence ensued. Steeply, who had made his early career with unspecified services, conducting technical interviews. Professional euphemism for involuntary interrogation, either with or without physical inducements. Yeah. Yeah. Another silence ensued. Steeply, who had made himself used silent pauses as an integral part of his techniques of interface. Here it diffused Marith. Marith felt the ironies of his position. One strap of Steeply's prosthesis brassiere had slipped into view below his shoulder, where it cut deeply into his flesh of the upper arm. The air smelled faintly of creosote, but much less strongly smelling than the ties of train tracks, which Meredith had smelled at close range. Steeply back was broad and soft. Meredith eventually said, "You in such a case have nothing. You stand on nothing, nothing of ground or rock beneath your feet. You fall, you blow here and there. Now, how does one say tragically, involuntarily, lost?" Another silence ensued. Steeply farted mildly. Mare shrugged. The BSS field operative Steeply may not have been truly sneering. The city Tucson's loom appeared a bleached and ghostly white in the unhumid air. Tucson loom appeared a bleached and ghostly white. Crepus- Crepuscular animals rustled and perhaps scuttled. Dense and unbeautiful spider webs of the poisonous USA species of spider black widow were beneath the shelf and the incline's other outcroppings. And when the wind hit certain angles in the mountainside, it moaned. Merritt thought of his victory over the train that had taken his legs. He attempted in English to say, "Oh, say land of the free." And they both could feel this queer, dry night desert chill ascend, with the moon's gibbous rise, a powdery wind down below making dust to shift, and cactus needles whistle. The sky's stars, adjusting to the color of low flame, but were themselves not yet chilled. Even Steeply's sleeveless dress, he and Mark stood and sat in the form-fitting astral spacesuit of warmth their own radiant heat produced. This is what happened. This is what happens in dry night climes. Merritt was learning. His dying wife had never once left southwestern Quebec. Les assassins de Fatoi Rolant's remote embryonic dissemination ops base down here in southwest USA seemed to him like the surface of the moon. Four corrugated quonsets of kiln-baked earth and air that swam and shimmered like the area behind jet engines. Empty and dirty windowed rooms, doorknobs hot to touch, and hell stench inside the empty rooms. Deeply was continuing, saying nothing, while he tamped down another of his long Belgian cigarettes. Meredith continued to hum the USA song all over the map in terms of key. Because none of them really meant any of it. 3 November, year of the Depend adult undergarment. Because none of them really meant any of it, Hal tells Kent Blott. The end of the day hatred of all the work is just part of the work. You think Stitt and Delint don't know we're going to sit in there together after showers and bitch? It's all planned out. The bitchers and moaners in there are just doing what's expected. But I look at these guys that have been here 6, 7 years, 8 years, still suffering, hurt, beat up, so tired. Just like I feel tired and suffer. I feel this dread. I see 7 or 8 years of unhappiness every day, and day after day of tiredness and stress and suffering stretching ahead. And for what? For a chance at a pro career that I'm starting to get this dready feeling a career in the show means even more suffering? If I'm skeletally stressed from all the grueling here by the time I get there. Blots on his back on the shag carpet, all five of them are. Stretched out, splayed, limbed with their heads up, supported on double-width velourish throw pillows on the floor of VR6. One of the 3 little viewing rooms on the second floor of the ComAd building. 2 flights from the locker rooms and 3 from the tunnel mouth. The room's new cartridge viewer is huge and almost painfully high definition. It hangs flat on the north wall like a painting. It runs off a refrigerated chip. The room's got no TP or phone console. It's very specialized, just a player or viewer and tapes. The cartridge player sits on the second shelf of a small bookcase beneath the viewer. The other shelves and several other cases are full of match cartridges. Motivational and visualization cartridges. Interlace, Tatsuka, Yushi, Yushi-Tsu, Cybervision. The 300 track wire from the cartridge player up to the lower right corner of the wall hung viewer is so thin it looks like a crack in the wall's white paint. Viewing rooms are windowless and the air from the vent is dull, though when the viewer on it looks like the room has a window. Hal puts on Hal's put on an undemanding visualization type cartridge, as he usually does for a big buddy group interface when they're all tired. He's killed the volume, so you can't hear the reinforcing mantra, but the picture is bright and bell cleared. It's like the picture almost leaps out at you. A graying and somewhat ravaged looking Stan Smith in an anachronistic white is at a court's baseline hitting textbook forehands over and over again. The same stroke, his back sort of osteoporotically hunched but his form immaculate. His footwork textbook and effortless. The frictionless pivot and backset of weight. The anachronistic Wilson would stick back and pointing straight to the fence behind him. The fluid transfer of weight to the front foot as the ball comes in, the contact at waist level and just out front. The front leg's muscle bunching up as the back's legs settle. Eyes glued to the yellow ball in the center of his string, stencil W. ETA. Kids are W. Stencil W. Wait, what? The front leg muscles bunching up as the back legs settle. Eyes glued to the yellow ball in the center of the string, stencil W. ETA kids are in a condition to watch not just the ball, but the ball's rotating scenes, to read the spin coming in. The front knee dipping slightly down under bulging quads as the weight flows more forward. The back foot up almost en pointe on the gleaming sneaker's unscuffed toe. The no-nonsense flourishless follow-through, so the stick ends up just in front of his gaunt face. Smith's cheeks have hollowed as he's aged. His face has collapsed at the sides. His eyes seem to bulge from the cheekbones that protrude as he inhales after impact. He looks desiccated. Aged in hot light, performing the same motions over and over for decades. His other hands floating up gently to grasp the sick's throat out in front of the face, so he flowed back into the ready stance all over again. No wasted motion, egoless strokes, no flourishes or ticks or excesses of wrist. Over and over, each forehand melting into the next, a loop. It's hypnotizing. It's supposed to be. The soundtrack says, don't think, just see, don't know, just flow. Over and over, if you turn it up. Don't think, just see, don't know, just flow. You're supposed to pretend it's you on the bell clear screen with the fluid and egoless strokes. You're supposed to disappear into the loop and then carry that disappearance out with you to play. The kids are lying there limp and splayed, supine jaws, slacked eyes wide and dim, a relaxed, exhausted warmth. The flooring beneath the shag is gently heated. Peter Bleak is asleep with his eyes open. A queer talent ETA seems to instill in the younger ones. Orrin had been able to sleep with his eyes open at the dinner table, two at home. Hal's fingers, long and light brown, and still slightly sticky from tincture of benzoin. over-the-counter topical stuff for the cortisation of skin. Tincture and benzoin facilitates the development of the kind of callus that don't get blood blisters underneath. Way more common and universal among serious players than lemon pledge. Finding the smell of T of B nauseous, some junior players prefer an applied layer of cornstarch or baby powder, which makes the T of B easier, to wash off later, but also leaves weird little white fingerprints over everything you touch. Isn't that crazy? That is crazy to me. Or lace behind his upraised head on the pillow, cupping his own skull, watching Stan Smith's eyes heavy too. You feel as though you'll be going through the exact same sort of suffering at 17 you suffer now, here, Kent. Kent Blott has colored shoelaces on his sneakers. With Mr. M. Bouncety Bounce Program, brown bow. Kent Blott has colored shoelaces on his sneakers with Mr. Bouncety Bounce Program, brand bow biters, which Hal finds extraordinarily artless and young. Peter B. snores softly, a small spit bubble protruding and receding. But Blott, surely you've considered this. Why are they all still here then, if it's so awful every day? Not every day, Blott says, but pretty often it's awful. They're here because they want to show when they get out. Ingersoll sniffs and says, they show meaning the ATP tour, travel, and cash prizes, and endorsements and appearance fees, match highlights in video mags, action photos and glossy print mags. But they know, and we know, one very top junior in 20 even gets all the way to the show, much less survives there long. The rest slog around on the satellite tours or regional tours or get soft as club pros or become lawyers or academics like everyone else, Hal says softly. Then they stay and suffer to get a scholarship, a college ride, a white cardigan with a letter. Girl co-eds keen on Letterman. Kent except for a Wayne and Pemulous. Not one guy in there needs any kind of scholarship. Pemulous'll get a full ride anywhere he wants. Just on test scores. Steets on'll send him anywhere even if he doesn't want to play. And Wayne's headed for the show. He'll never do more than a year in ONCAA's. Blott's father, a cutting-edge ENT oncologist, flew all over the world, removing tumors from a wealthy mucous membrane. Blott has a trust fund. None of that points, and you guys know it. Aren't NFTs cool? NFTs are pretty damn cool. Yeah. Holy crap. That's pretty damn cool. Blott's father, a cutting-edge ENT oncologist, flew all over the world, removing tumors from wealthy mucous membranes. Blott has a trust fund. None of that's the point, and you guys know it. They love this game. They love the game, you're going to say. Stan Smith has switched to backhands. They sure must love something, Ingersoll. But how about for a second I say that not about Kent's point either. Kent points the misery in that room just now, KB. I've taken part in essentially the same bitter, bitchy kind of session hundreds of times with those same guys after bad PMs, in the showers and the saunas, at dinner. Very much bitching also in the lavatories, Arslanian says. Hal unsticks his hairs from his fingers. Arslanian always has a queer, faint, hot doggish smell about him. The point is it's ritualistic. The bitching and moaning, even assuming they feel the way they say when they get together, the point is noticing. We were all sitting there, all feeling the same way, together. The point is togetherness. Shouldn't there be violas for this part? How, if this is the point? Ingersoll, Beak's cold weather Idonides wake him periodically, and he gurgles, and his eyes roll. Damn, yo. Hello. And his eyes roll up briefly before they level out and he settles back, seeming to stare. Hal creatively visualizes that Smith's velvety backhand is him slow-mo slapping Evan Ingersoll into the opposite wall. Ingersoll's parents founded the Rhode Island version of the service, where you order groceries by TP and teenagers. In fleets of station wagons bring them out to you. Instead of supermarkets, what the point is that we'd all just spend 3 hours playing challenges against each other, in scrotum tightening, cold assailing each other, trying to take away each other's spots on the squad, trying to defend them against each other's assaults. The system's got inequality as an axiom. We know where we stand entirely in relation to one another. John leans over me, and I'm over Struck and Shaw, who 2 years back were both over me, but under Troth and Shat, and now are over Troth, who as of today is over Freer, who is substantially over Shat, who can't beat anyone in the room except Pemulus, since his knee on and Crohn's disease got so much worse, and is barely hanging on in terms of ranking, and is showing incredible balls just hanging on. Freer beat me 4-2 in the quarters of the U.S. Clay 2 summers ago, and now he's on the B squad and 5 slots below me. 6 slots of trolls can still beat him when they play again after the illness defeat. After that illness default. I am over Blot. I am over Ingersoll. Idris Arslanian nods. Well, Blot's just 10, Idris, and you're under Chew, who's on an odd year and is under possible weight, and Blot's under Beak, and Ingersoll simply by virtue of age division. I know just where I stand at all times, muses Ingersoll. Cybervision edits its visualization sequences with a melt filter, so Stan Smith's follow-through loops seamlessly into a backswing for the exact same next stroke. The transitions are gauzy and dreamlike. Hal struggles to hike himself up onto his elbows. We're all on each other's food chain, all of us. It's an individual sport. Welcome to the meaning of individual. We're each deeply alone here. It's what we're all have in commonness, this aloneness. We are all on each other's food chain, all of us. It's an individual sport. Welcome to the meaning of individual. We're each deeply alone here. It's what we all have in commonness, this aloneness. E unibus plurum, Ingersoll muses. Hal looks from face to face. Ingersoll's face is completely devoid of each brow, and is round and dustily freckled, not unlike a Miss Clark pancake. So how can we also be together? How can we be friends? How can Ingersoll root for Arslanian in Idris's singles at the Port Washington thing, when if Idris loses, Ingersoll gets to challenge for his spot again? I do not require his root, for I am ready. Arslanian bare canines. Well then, that's the point. How can we be friends? Even if we all live and eat and shower and play together, how can we keep from being 136 deeply alone people all jammed together? You're talking about a community. This is a community spiel. I think alienation, Arslanian says, rolling the profile over to signify he's talking to Ingersoll. Existential individuality, frequently referred to in the West, solipsism. His upper lip goes up and down over his teeth. Hale says, in a nutshell, what we're talking about here is loneliness. Blot looks up, about ready to cry. Beak's palsied eyes and little limb spasms signify a troubling dream. Blot rubs his nose furiously with the heel of his hand. I miss my dog, Ingersoll concedes. Hal rose onto one elbow to hike a finger into the air. But then so noticed the instant group cohesion that formed itself around all the pissing and moaning down there. Why don't you? Blot, you can't. This was your question. The what looks like sadism, the skeletal stress, the fatigue, the suffering unites us. They want to let us sit around and bitch together after a bad PM set. We all, however, briefly get to feel we have a common enemy. This is their gift to us, their medicine. Nothing brings you together like a common enemy. Nothing brings you together like a common enemy. Mr. Delint, Mr. Dr. Tavis Stitt, Delint, Watson, Nwangi, Thode. All Stitt's henchmen and henchwomen. I hate them. Blot cries out, and you've been here this long, and you still think this hatred's an accident. Purchase a clue, Kent Blot, Arslanian says. The large and economy-sized clue, Blot. Ingersoll chimes. Beak sits up and says, God, no, not with pliers. And collapses back again with a spit bubble. Hal's pretending incredulity. You guys haven't noticed yet the way Stitt whole staff gets progressively more foul-tempered and sadistic as an important competitive week comes up. Ingersoll up on one elbow at Blot. The Port Washington meets ID Day, the Tuscan Whataburger the week after. They want us in absolute top shape, Blot. Hal lies back and lets Smith Ballet loosen his facial muscles, again staring. Shit, Ingersoll, we're all in the top shape already. That's not it. That's the least of it. We're off the charts, shape-wise. Ingersoll, the average North American kid can't even do one pull-up, according to Nwangi. Arslanian points down at his chest, 28 pull-ups. The point, Hal says, is that it's not about the physical anymore. Men, the physical stuff's just pro forma. It's the head they're working on here, boys. Day and year in and out, a whole program. It'll help your attitude to look for evidence of design. The point, Hal says softly, is that it's not about the physical anymore, men. The physical stuff's just pro forma. It's the head they're working on here, boys. Day and year in and out, a whole program. It'll help your attitude to look for evidence of design. They always give us something to hate. Really hate together as big stuff looms. The dreaded May drills during finals before the summer tour. The post-Christmas crackdown before Australia. The November freeze-a-thon, the snotfest, the delay in upping, the lunge, and getting us undercover. A common enemy. I may despise KB Freer, or can't quite resist Evan Ingersoll or Jenny Bash, but we despise Stitt's men. The double matches on top of runs, the insensitivity to exams, the repetition, the stress, the loneliness, but we get together and bitch all of a sudden we've given something group expression. A community voice. Community, Evan. Oh, they're cunning. They give themselves up to our dislike, calculate our breaking points, and aim for just over them. They send us into the locker rooms with an unstructured 45 before big buddy sessions. Accident? Random happenstance? You guys ever see evidence of the tiniest lack of coolly calculated structure around here? The structure is what I hate the most of all. They know what's going on, Blot says, bouncing a little on his tailbone. They want us to get together and complain. Oh, they're cunning, Ingersoll says. Hal curls himself a bit on one elbow to put a small plug of Kodiak. He can't tell whether Ingersoll's being insolent. He lies there very slack, visualizing Smith pounding overhead, down onto Ingersoll's skull. Hal some weeks back had acquiesced to Lyle's diagnosis that Hal finds Ingersoll, the smart, soft closet kid, with a big, soft, eyebrowless face, and unwrinkled thumb joints, with a runty, cuddled look of a mama's boy from way back, a quick intelligence he squanders on an insatiably need to advance some impression of himself. That the kid so repels because Hal's that the kid so repels Hal because Hal sees in the kid certain parts of himself he can't or won't accept. None of this ever occurs to Hal when Ingersoll's in the room. He wishes him ill. Blot and Arslanian are looking at him. Are you okay? He's tired, Arslanian says. Ingersoll drums idly and on his own ribcage. Hal usually gets secretly high so regularly these days this year that if by dinner time he hasn't gotten high yet, that day his mouth begins to fill with spit, some rebound effect from B. Hope's desiccating action, and his eyes start to water as if he just yawned. The smokeless tobacco, almost as an excuse to spit sometimes. Hal struck by the fact that he really for the most part, believes what he said about loneliness and the structured need for a we here, and this together with the Ingersoll repulsion and spit flood makes him uncomfortable again, brooding uncomfortably for a moment on why he gets off on the secrecy of getting high in secret more than on the getting high itself, possibly. He always gets the feeling there's some clue to the tip. He always gets the feeling there's some clue to it on the tip of his tongue, some mute and inaccessible part of the cortex, and he always feels vaguely sick scanning for it. The other thing that happens if he doesn't do one-hitters, sometimes before dinners, is he feels slightly sick to his stomach, and it's hard to eat enough at dinner, and then later when he does go off and get off, he gets ravenous and goes out to father and son market for candy, or else floods his eyes with murine and heads down to the headmaster's house for another late dinner with CT and the moms, and eats like such a feral animal that the mom says it does something instinctively maternal in her heart good to see him pack it away. But then he wakes up before dawn with awful indigestion. So the suffering gets less lonely, Bloss prompts him. 2 curves down the hall in VR5, where the viewer on the south wall and doesn't get turned on. The Canadian John Wayne got Lamont Chu and Sleepy T.P. Peterson and Kieran McKenna and Brian Van Vleck. He's talking about developing the concept of tennis mastery. Chu tells the other 3 they're on the floor Indian style. Wayne standing with his back against the door, rotating his head to stretch the neck. His point is that progress towards genius show caliber mastery is slow, frustrating, humbling, a question of less talent than temperament. Is this right, Mr. Wayne? Chu says that because you proceed toward mastery through a series of plateaus, So there's like a radical improvement up to a certain plateau, and then what looks like a stall on the plateau, with only way to get off one of the plateaus and climb up to the next one up ahead is with a whole lot of frustrating, mindless, repetitive practice and patience and hanging in there. Plateau? Wayne says, looking for it at the ceiling and pushing the back of his head isometrically against the door. With an X? Plateau X? I don't know. The inactive viewer screen is the color of Way out over the Atlantic, looking straight down on a cold day. Choose cross-legged posture as textbook. What John's saying is the type who doesn't hang in there and slog on the patient road toward mastery are basically three types. You've got what he calls your despairing type, who's fine as long as he's in a quick improvement stage before plateau. But then he hits a plateau and sees himself seem to stall. Not getting better, or even seeming to get a little worse. And this type gives in a frustration and despair because he hasn't got the humbleness and patience to hang in there and slog. And he can't stand the time he has to put in on a plateau. And what happens? Geronimo, the other kids yell, not quite in sync. He bails, right? Chu says. He refers to the index card. Wayne's head makes the door rattle slightly. Chu says. Then you've got your obsessive type. JW says, so eager to plateau hop, he doesn't even know the word patient, much less humble or slog. When he gets stalled at a plateau, he tries to will and force himself off it. But sheer force of work and drill and will and practice, drilling and obsessively honing and working more and more, as in frantically, and he overdoes it, and gets. When he gets stalled at a plateau, he tries to will and force himself off it. By sheer force and work and drill and will and practice, drilling and obsessively honing and working more and more, as in frantically, and he overdoes it and gets hurt. And pretty soon he's chronically all messed up with injuries, and he hobbles around on the court all obsessively overworking until finally he's hardly even able to walk or swing. And his ranking plummets until finally 1 p.m. there's a little knock on his door and it's Delint, here for a little chat about your progress here at ETA. Bonsai, El Bilo, see ya. Peace. Then what John considers maybe the worst type, because it can cunningly masquerade as patience and humble frustration. You got the complacent type, who improves radically until he hits a plateau, and is content with the radical improvement he's made to get to the plateau, and doesn't mind staying at the plateau because it's comfortable and familiar, and he doesn't worry about getting off it. And pretty soon you find he's designed a whole game around compensating for the weaknesses and chinks in the armor the given plateau represents in his game. So let's read that again. Then what John considers maybe the worst type, because it can cunningly masquerade as patience and humble frustration. You've got the complacent type, who improve radically until he hits a plateau, and is content with the radical improvement he's made to get to the plateau, and doesn't mind staying at the plateau because it's comfortable and familiar. And he doesn't worry about getting off it, and pretty soon you find he's designed a whole game around compensating for the weaknesses and chinks in the armor the given plateau represents in his game. Still, his whole game beating him, locating the chinks of armor, and his ranks start to slide. But he'll say he doesn't care. He says he's in it for the love of the game, and he always smiles, but there gets to be something sort of tight and hangdog about his smile. He always smiles, and it's real nice to everybody and real good to have around, but he keeps staying where he is while other guys hop plateau, and he gets beat more and more, but he's content until one day there's a knock at the door. Damn, sucks for that guy. It's Delint, a quiet chat Geron's eye. Van Vleck looks up at Wayne, who's now turned away, with his hands against the door frame, shoving one leg back, stretching the other right calf. This is your advice, Mr. Wayne, sir? This isn't Chew palming himself off as you again? They all want to know how Wayne does it. Two continually in 18s at just 17, and very likely one after the Whataburger, and already getting calls from pro-serve agents. And already getting calls from pro-serve agents. Tavis has lateral Alice Moore screen. Wayne's the most sought-after big buddy at ETA. You have to apply for Wayne as buddy by random drawing. Lamont and Chew and T.P. Peterson are sending Van Vleck optical daggers as Wayne turns around to stretch a hip flexor and says he'd say pretty much all he has to say. Totter, I admire your savvy. I admire a kid's certain worldly skepticism, no matter how misplaced it is here. So even though it fucks me on the odds, so there's now like practically no way I can come out square. M. Pemulus says in VR2, Subdorm C, sitting on the very edge of the divan with a few feet of beige shag between him and his 4 kids, all cross-legged on cushions. He says, I'll reward you worldly skepticism this once by letting you try it with only 2. So like I've got just 2 cards here, and I hold them up, one in each hand. He stops abruptly, knocks his temple with the heel of a hand that holds a jack. Whoa, what am I thinking? We all gotta put in our 5 ski here first. Otis P. Lord clears his throat. The ante. Or it's called the pot, says Todd Postlewaite, laying a 5 on the little pile. Jesus, I'm thinking, sweet Jesus, what am I getting into with these kids that speak the lingo like veteran Jersey Shore croppiers? I got to be missing a widget or something. The fuck though? You know what I'm saying? So, Todd, man, you chose just one of these cards. We got the chubby jack and the spade queen here, and you chose, and so down they go, both of them, face down, and so you choose, and down they go, face down, and I like to swirl them around on the floor a little, not shuffle, but swirl, so they're in plain view the whole time, and you follow the card you choose around and around, which like with 3 cards maybe, I've got some chance you lose track, but with just 2, Ted sat in VR3 at his giant plastine oral demonstrator, the huge dental mock-up, white planks, teeth, and obscene pink gums, twin size floss anchored around both wrists. The vital thing here, gentlemen, being not the force or how often you rotate to particulate free floss, but the motion. See, a soft sawing motion gently up and down both accipitals of the enamel, demonstrating down the side of the bicuspid bigs as the kid's head, the plastine gum stuff yielding with 6 sucking sounds. Shots 5 kids all either glazed looking or glued to their watches his second hand. And here's the thing so few people understand. Down below the ostensible gum line into the basal recession at either side of the gingival mound that obtrudes between the teeth, down below where your most pernicious particulates hide and breed. Trost holds court in his. Pemulus and Shat's room in Subdorm C, supinely upright against both of his and one of Shat's pillow. The vaporizer chugging, one of his kids holding Kleenex at the ready. Boys, what it is, I tell you, it's repetition. First, last, always. It's hearing the same motivational stuff over and over till sheer repetitive weight makes it sink down into the gut. First, What it is, I tell you, it's repetition. First, last, always. It's hearing the same motivational stuff over and over till sheer repetitive weight makes it sink down into the gut. It's making the same pivots, lunges, and strokes over, and over again. At you boys' age, it reps for their own sake, putting results on the back burner, why they never give anybody the boot for insufficient progress under 14. It's repetitive movement and motions for their own sake, over and over until the accretive weight of the reps sinks the movement themselves under your like consciousness into the more nether regions. It's repetitive movements and motions for their own sake, over and over, until the accretive weight of the reps sink the movements themselves down under your like consciousness into the more nether regions. Through repetition, they sink and soak into the hardware, the CPS, the machine language, the the autonomical part that makes you breathe and sweat. It's no accident. They say you eat, sleep, breathe tennis here. These are autonomic. These are autonomical. Accretive means accumulating. Through sheer mindless repeated motions, the machine language of the muscles, until you can do it without thinking about it. Play at like 14. Give and take, they figure here. Just do it. Forget about it. There a point, of course, there's no point. The point of repetition is there's no point. Wait until it soaks into the hardware and then see the way this frees up your head. A whole shitload of headspace you don't need for mechanics anymore after they've sunk in. Now the mechanics are wired in, hardwired in. This frees the head in the remarkablest way. Just wait. You started thinking a whole different way now. Playing. The court might as well be inside you. The ball stops being a ball. The ball starts being something that you just now ought to be in the, you just know ought to be in the air, spinning. This is when they start getting on you about concentration. Right now, of course, you have to concentrate. There's no choice. It's not wired into your language yet. You have to think about it every time you do it. But wait till 14 or 15, then they see you as being at one of your like crucial plateaus. 15 tops. Then the concentration and character shit starts. Then they really come after you. This is the crucial plateau where character starts to matter. Focus, self-consciousness, the chattering head, the cackling voices, the choking issue, fear versus whatever isn't fear, self-image, doubt, reluctance, little tight-lipped, cold-footed men inside your mind, cackling about fear and doubt, chinks in the mental armor. Now these start to matter. 13 at the ear earliest. Staff look at a range of 13 to 15. Also, at the age of manhood rituals in various countries. Think about it. Until then, repetition. Until then, you might as well be machines. Here is their view. You're just going through the motions. Think about the phrase. You're just going through the motions. Wiring them into the motherboard. You guys don't know how good you got it right now. I mean, I'm just some privileged douchebag, so I don't know what I'm talking about. James Albrecht Lockley Struck Jr. of Orinda, CA prefers one long Q&A type interface with VR8's viewer playing ambient stuff against relaxation vistas of surf, shimmering ponds, fields of nodding wheat. Time for about maybe two more midrugis. Say it's close and the guy's starting kertwanging you. Balls are way in and he's calling them out. You can't believe the flagrancy of it. Implicit, this is no lineman situation. Traub, you're saying? Creepily, blue-eyed, Audern, Talit, Kelpsa chimes in. This is early rounds. This the kind that gives you only 2 balls, honor systems. Oh, the kind that only gives you 2 balls, honor systems. All of a sudden, they're here. All of a sudden, there he is, kertwanging on you. It happens. I know it happens. Traub says, whether he's outright kertwanging or just head fucking you, do you start kertwanging back, tit for tat? What do? Do we assume there's a crowd? Early round, remote court, no witnesses? You're on your own out there. Do you kertwang back? You do not kertwang back. You play the calls, not a word. Keep smiling. If you still win, you'll have grown inside as a person. If you lose, you do something private and unpleasant to his water jug right before his next round. A couple of the kids have notebooks and studious nods. Struck is a prized tactician, very formal in BB group sessions. Something scholarly and detached about him his charges often revere. We can discuss private water jug unpleasantness on Friday, Struck says, looking at his watch, a hand raised by violently cross-eyed Carl Whale, age 13, acknowledgement from Struck. Say you had to fart. You're serious, Mobes, aren't you? Jim, sir. Say you're playing out there and suddenly you have to fart. It feels like one of those really hot, nasty, pressurized ones. I get the picture. Now some empathetic murmurs exchanged look. Josh Gopnik is nodding very intensely. Struck stands very straight to the right of the viewer, hands behind his back like an Oxford Don. I mean the kind that's real urgent. Whale looks briefly around him, but that it's not impossible, it's actually a need to go to the bathroom instead, masquerading as a fart. Now 5 heads are nodding, pained, urgent, clearly a vexing sub-14 issue. A vexing sub-14 issue. Struck examines a cuticle. Meaning, defecate if what is what you mean, then, Mobes. Go to the bathroom. Gomnick looks up. Carl saying, the kind where you don't know what to do. What if you think you have to fart, but it's really that you have to shit? As in, it's a competitive situation. It's not a situation where you can go bearing down and forcing and see what happens. So out of caution, you don't, Komnick says. Fart? But then you denied yourself an urgent fart and you're running around trying to compete with a terribly hot, nasty, uncomfortable fart riding around the court inside you. 2 levels down, Ortho Steesh and his brood, the little library-ish circle of soft chairs and lamps in the warm foyer off the front door to Subdorm C. And what he says it about more than tennis. Mein Kinder, well, it sort of means my family. He eyeballs me right square in the eye and says, it's about how to reach down into parts of yourself you didn't know were there, and get down in there and live inside those parts. And the only way to get them, sacrifice, suffer, and deny. What are you willing to give? You'll hear him ask it if you're privileged to ever get an interface. What are you willing to give? You'll hear him ask You'll hear him ask it if you're privileged to ever get an interface. The call could come at any time. The man wants a mono-to-mono interface. You'll hear him say it over and over again. What have you got to give? What are you willing to part with? I see you're looking a little pale there. Wagon, Schnet? Is this scary? You bet your little pink personal asses it's scary. Is this scary? You bet your little pink personal asses it's scary. It's the big time. He'll teach you straight the fuck out. It's about discipline and the sacrifice and honor to something way bigger than your personal ass. He'll mention America. He'll talk about patriotism and don't think he won't. He'll talk patriotism and don't think he won't. He'll talk about patriotic play that's a high road to the thing. He's not American, but I'll tell you straight out right, he makes me proud to be American. Mein Kinder, he'll say it's how to learn to be a good American during a time, boys, when America isn't good its own self. He's not American, but I tell you straight out right here, he makes me proud to be American. Mein Kinder, he'll say it's how to learn to be a good American during a time, boys, when America isn't good its own self. There's a long pause. The front door is newer than the wood around it. I chew fiberglass for the old man. The only reason the buddies in VR8 can hear the little burst of applause from the foyer is because Struck won't hesitate to pause and consider silently as long as he has to. To the kids, the pauses spell dignity and integrity, and the still water depth of a guy with 9 years in at 3 different academies and who has to shave daily. He exhales a slow breath through rounded lips, looking off up at the ceiling's Giloc border. Mobes, if it's me, I let it ride. You let it out, come what may. A la contraire. I let it ride around inside all day if I have to. I make an iron rule, nothing escapes my bottom during play, not a toot or a whistle. If I play hunched over or I play hunched over, I take the discomfort in the name of dignified caution. And when it's especially bad, I look up at the sky between points, and I say to the sky, "Thank you, sir. May I have another? Thank you, sir. May I have another?" Gobnik and Talit Kelpsa are writing this down. Struck says that if I want to hang for a long haul, one side of the gingival mound, then up over the apex, and down over the other side of the gingival mound, you should cultivate a certain amount of touch with the string. Now the big question of the character is, do we let a fluke of a probably 1 in 100 lapse in concentration make us throw up our faggy hands and go dragging characterlessly back to our dens to lick the whimpering wounds, or do we narrow our eyes and put out the chin and say pumulus double or nothing, when the odds remain so almost crazily stacked in our favor today? So they do it on purpose, Beak is asking. Try to make us hate them. Limits and rituals. It's almost time for communal dinner. Sometimes Mrs. Clark in the kitchen lets Mario ring a triangle with a steel ladle while she rolls back the dining room doors. They make the servers wear hairnets and little Aube Guinness gloves. Hal could take out the plugs and nib down onto the tunnels. Maybe not even all the way down into the pump room. Be only 20 minutes late. He's thinking in an abstract, absent way about limits and rituals. Listening to Blot give Beak his air per coup. Like as in there a clear line, a quantifiable difference between need and strong desire. He has to sit up and spit in the wastebasket. There is a twinge in a tooth on his mouth's left side. Like as in there is a clear line, a quantifiable difference between need and just strong desire. He has to sit up and spit in the wastebasket. There is a twinge in a tooth on his mouth's left side. Mario Incandenza's first and only even remotely romantic experience thus far. In mid-October, year of the Depend adult undergarment, Hal had invited Mario for a post-prandial stroll, and they were strolling the ETA grounds between the West Courts and the hillside tree line. Hal with his gear bag, Mario could sense that Hal wanted to be able to go up by himself briefly. So he contrived to be very interested in some sort of leaf and twig ensemble off the path, and let Hal sort of melt away down the path. The whole area running along the tree line and the thickets of the whole area running along the tree line and the thickets of like shrubbery and stickery bushes, and heaven knew what all was covered with fallen leaves that were dry but had not yet quite all the way lost their color. The leaves were underfoot Mario, kind of tottered from tree to tree, pausing at each tree to rest. It was at 1900 hours, not yet true twilight. But the only thing left of the sunlight of the sunset was a snout just over Newton, and the places under long shadows were cold, and a certain kind of melancholy sadness was insinuating itself into the grounds. The staggered lamps by the pass hadn't come on yet, however. A lovely scent of illegally burned leaves wafting up from East Newton mixed with the foody smells of the ventilator turbines out of the back of the dining hall. Two gulls were in one place in the area over the dumpsters. Over the rear parking lot, leaves crackled underfoot. The sound of Mario walking in dry leaves was like crackle, crackle, stop, crackle, 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 stop. An Empire waste displacement vehicle whistled past overhead, rising in the start of its arcs, its one blue alert light twinkle. He was around where the tree line bulged herniatically out toward the end of the west court's fencing. From deeper inside the thickets on the lip of the hillside came a tremendous crackling and thrashing and underbrush of the hillside. Came a tremendous crackling and thrashing of underbrush and trailing willow branches. And who should have unexpected view but the USS Millicent Kent, a 16-year-old out of Montclair, New Jersey, one singles on the girls' 16A squad and 200 kilos if she was a kilo, southpaw. One hander off the backhand, a serve Donnie Stott likes to clock with a radar and chart. Mario filled the USS Millicent Kent for a staff analysis on several occasions. They exchanged hearty highs. One of only. A couple female ETAs, visible veins in her forearms, object of a fiercely wagered on bench press challenge against Shat, Freer, and Petropolis Con, that M. Pemulus had organized last spring, in which she topped Con and Freer refused to show, and Shat finally beat her, but doffed his cap. Out for a staff-ordered weight management post-dinner stroll, squeezing Penn's fives in both hands. In ETA, sweatpants and with an enormous violet bow, either scotch tape or glue round its top of her hair. She told Mario she'd just seen the strangest thing farther back, deeper in the thickets of the lip. Her hair was tall and rounded off in the shape of a kind of pill, not unlike a papal hat or a British constable's tall hat. Mario said the bow looked terrific, and what a surprise to come face to face like this out here in the chilled dusk. Bridget Boone had said the U.S. Millicent Kent's chauffeur looked like a missile protruding from its silo in preparation for a launch. The last of the sun's snout was setting just over the tip of the USS Millicent's hair, which was almost oasisly hard-looking, composed of dense wovenness, reticulate fibers like a dry loofah, which she said over the summer of home perm had misfired and left her hair a system of reticulate nests, and was only now loosening up enough even to attach a bow to. Mario said that, well, the bow set her off to a T was all he had to say on the matter. He had literally said chill dusk. The USS MK said she'd been amusing herself beating her way through one of the brambly thickets Mrs. Incandenza had when she'd still spent times outdoors at all. Planned to discourage part-time employees from short-cutting up the hillside to ETA, and had come up a Xviii brand telescoping tripod, new and dully silvery looking, and set up on three legs, right in the middle of the thicket. For no visible reason and with no footprints or visible evidence or path beating anywhere around except the USS Millicent's own, the USS Millicent Kent stowed a tennis ball in each pocket and took Mario's claw and said, "Here, to walk this way," and she'd show him real quick and get his feedback on the issue, and plus have a witness when they got back, and she told people about it. Mario said Husky 4 came with that own pan head and cable release, with the girl supporting him with one hand and beating an easement through the brush with the other. They proceeded deeper into the thicket on the lip. The outdoor light was now the same hue as USS MK's hairbrow. She said she swore to God it was around here someplace. Mario said his late dad had used a somewhat less snazzy 4 model Husky back in his early days of making art films, when he also used a homemade dolly and sandbags and halogen spots instead of Klieg's. Several different species and types of birds were twittering. The USS Millicent Kent told Mario that off the record, she'd always felt he had the longest, luscious, prettiest lashes of any boy on 2 continents, 3 if you counted Australia. Moore thanked her kindly, calling her ma'am and trying to fake a southern accent. The USS Millicent Kent said she wasn't sure what were her old footprints from finding the thicket with the tripod and what were their more recent footprints from trying to find the old footprints, and that she was worried because it was starting to get dark and they might not be able to find it, and then Mario wouldn't believe she'd seen something at batshit sounding as a gleamy silvery tripod, all set up for no reason in the middle of Nowheresville. Mario said he was pretty sure that Australia was a continent. Walking, he came up to around the bottom of the USS Millicent ribcage. Mario's heard crackling and thrashing from some other thicket nearby, but was certain it wasn't Hal, since Hal very rarely made a lot of motion noise, either outside or in. The USS Millicent Kent told Mario that though she was an admittedly great player with an overwhelming haul ass up to the net and loom over it like a Titan game in the Betty Stowe Venus Williams power game tradition, and headed for an almost limitless future in the show, she confined in him and headed for an almost limitless future in the show. She'd confide in him in private out there that she never really loved competitive tennis, that her real love and passion was modern interpretive dance, in which she admittedly had less unconsciously native gifts and talents to bring to bear, but which she loved and had spent just about all her off-court time as a little girl practicing in a leotard in front of double-width mirror in her room at home in suburban Montclair, New Jersey. But that's tennis. But that tennis was what she had limitless talent at 8. Holy shit. Okay. The USS Millicent Kent told Mario that though she was an admittedly great player, with an overwhelming haul ass up to the net and loom over it like a Titan game in the Betty Stowe Venus Williams power game tradition, and headed for an almost limitless future in the show, she'd confide in him in private out here that she'd never really loved competitive tennis, that her real love and passion was modern interpretive dance, at which she admittedly had less unconsciously native gifts and talents to bring to bear, but which she loved and had spent just about all her off court time as little girl practicing in a leotard in front of a double width mirror in her room at home in suburban Montclair, New Jersey. But that tennis was what she had limitless talent in, and got emotional strokes and tuition waiver boarding school of offers in, and that she'd been desperate to get into a boarding school. Mario asked if she could recall if the Husky 4 tripod had been the TL1 with waffle girded rubber grips on the legs and a 360 pinhead for the SL1 with an unwaffled tip with unwaffled tips and only 180 pinhead that swiveled in the arc instead of a full circle. The USS Millicent revealed that she had accepted a scholarship to ETA at age 9 for the sole reason of getting away from her father. She referred to her father as her old man, which you which you can tell, which you can just tell she capitalizes. Her mother had left home when the USS Millicent was only 5, running off very abruptly with a man sent by what he had then been called Con Edison to do a free home energy efficiency assessment. It had been 6 years since she'd laid eyeball on her old man, but to the best of her recall, he was almost wait what? Was only 5, running off very abruptly with a man sent by what had been then by her mother had left when the USS Millicent was only 5, running off very abruptly with a man sent by what had then been called Con Edison to do a free home energy efficiency assessment. It had been 6 years since she'd laid eyeball on her old man, but to the best of her recall, he was almost 3 meters tall and morbidly obese, which had been why every mirror and bathtub in the house had been double width. Excuse me. One older sister, who had been deeply involved in synchronized swimming, had gotten pregnant and married in high school soon after her mother's departure. All this time, there's been a crackling and crashing up the hillside. Mario has trouble on any kind of decline grade. Some sort of bird sitting in the top of a branch of a little tree and looking at them without saying anything. Mario thinks suddenly of a joke he remembers hearing Michael Pemulus say. If two people were to get married in West Virginia and then pull up stakes and move to Massachusetts, and then if they decide they want to get a divorce, what's the biggest problem with getting a divorce? The USS MK says her other older sister had at just 15 joined the Ice Capades, of all things, and was in the backup like chorus, where the biggest artistic challenge was not bumping into people and either falling or making them fall. Getting a divorce from your sister, because in West Virginia, Pemulus said a lot of people who get married are brother and sister. Hold my hand. He was only joking, though. By now, the light was about the same color as the ash and clinkers in the bottom of a Weber grill. The USS Millicent Kent was leading them in a set of slightly diminishing circles. Then she said at age 8 she came home early from after-school drills at the USTA Junior Facility in Pasig, New Jersey, looking forward to slipping into the old leotard and getting in some modern interpretive dancing up in her room, only to come home suddenly and find her father wearing her leotard, which, needless to say, didn't fit very well, and with the small front portion of his huge bare feet squeezed into a pair of strapless pumps Mrs. Kent had left behind in her haste. In the dining room mirror In the dining room, he'd move all the furniture over the side of, in front of the really wide mirror, in a grotesquely tiny and bulging violet leotard, capering. Mario says violet's really the USS Millicent color. She says that was the exact creepy word for it, capering. Pirouetting and rondeling, simpering as well. The crotch of her leotard looks like a slingshot. It was so deformed he hadn't heard her come in. U.S. Millicent asked Mario if he'd ever seen a girl's yin yang before. Obscene mottled hirsute flesh had pooched and spilled out every centimeter of the leotard's perimeter. She recalled she had a voluptuous figure even at 8, so she told Mario, but the old man was in a whole different size ballpark altogether. Mario kept saying, "Golly, Ned." Oh, yeah, "Golly, Ned," all he could think of to say. His flesh jiggled and bounced as he capered. It was repellent, she said. There was no sign of Husky 4 or any other model of tripod in any other thickets or boscages. Her literal term for it was yin yang. But her old man was just was just a cross-dressing transvestite, she said. And it turned out they always had to be a relative's female clothes. Skating, skirts. She said she always used to wonder why her sister's one pieces and figure skating skirts always looked so askewly baggy and elastic shot, since the sisters didn't exactly wear tiny little malnourished sizes themselves. The old man didn't hear her come in, and he capered and jeeted for several more minutes until he happened to catch her simpering eye in the mirror, she said. That's when she knew she had to get away, she said. And Mario's own old man admissions lady had called out of the blue that very evening, she said, like it had been fate, serendipity, kismet. Yin yang, Mario offered, nodding. The U.S. Millicent hand was large and hot, and at the level of sogginess of a bath mat that's been used several times in a row in quick succession. Her second oldest sister, many years, had informed the USS MK that the first time anybody had any inkling about the old man was an episode when the older sister was very small, and Miss K had sewed her a special costume complete with gold lame bow and arrow for playing Cupid in the school Valentine's Day pageant. And the sister school had got out early one day after an asbestos scare, and she'd come unexpectedly home and found the old man in the basement rumpus room, in tiny wing and hideously distended diaper, striking a pose from a rather well-known Titian oil in the Met's high Renaissance wing, and had struggled with denial and own perceptions doubting for quite some time thereafter, until a hysterical episode during a rehearsal for an Ice Capades Valentine's Day number brought all the feelings surging up and broke the denial. And the Ice Capades employees' assistance office counseling staff helped her start to work it all through. At which point the USS Millicent stopped them in an unprickly thicket of what later turned out to be poison stomach, and turned with a strange glint in the one eye that wasn't in pine shadow, and crushed Mario's large head to the area just below her breasts, and said she needed to confess that Mario's eyelashes
and vest with extendable police lock he used for staying upright in one place had for quite some time now driven her right around the bend with sensual feeling. With Mario perceived as a sudden radical drop in the prevailing temperature was in fact the USS Millicent Kent's sexual stimulation sucking tremendous quantities of ambient energy out of the air surrounding them. Mario's face was so squashed against the USS Millicent thorax that he had to contort his mouth way out to the left to breathe. USS MK's hairbow became detached and fluttered down through Mario's sightline like a giant crazed violet moth. USS MK was trying to undo Mario's corduroys, but was frustrated by the complex system of snaps and fasteners at the bottom of the police lock's Velcro vest, which overlapped his trousers' own fasteners. And Mario tried to reconfigure his mouth somehow to both breathe and warn the USS MK that he was incredibly ticklish in the area of his belly button and directly below. He could now start to hear his brother howl somewhere to the above and east, calling Mario's name at a moderate volume. The USS Millicent Kent was saying there was no way Mario could be any more nervous than she about what was happening between them. It's true, the sounds of Mario sucking air out of severely leftward controlled mouth could have interpretable as the wrapped one arm around. It's true, the sounds of Mario sucking the air out of a severely leftward contorted mouth could have been interpretable as the wrapping one arm around his shoulder for leverage, and force her other hand up under the hem of a tight vest, and then down inside trousers and briefs rooting for a penis, that Mario became so ticklish that he began to double up, clearing his face of the USS Millicent's front and laughing out loud in such a distinctive high-pitched way that Hal had no trouble beelining right upon them. Compromised though his navigational systems were after 15 or so secret minutes alone in the fragment pines. Wait. Mario later said it was just like when there was a word on the tip of your tongue that you try as you might, you can't remember until the exact second you stop trying, and it pops right into your head. It was when the three of them were walking together, back up the hillside toward the tree line's lip, not trying to do anything but get back to ComAd by the most direct route to in the dark, that they stumbled upon the cinematic tripod, a duly glinting TL waffle tipped husky in the middle of what wasn't a very tall or thick thicket at all. It's almost like she was trying to get this dig. That's what it seems like to me. That she lured him all the way out here to express herself and take advantage of him. That's what I think. Mario later said it was just like when there was a word on the tip of your tongue that try as you might, you can't remember until the exact second you stop trying, and it pops right into your head. It was when the three of them were walking together, back up the hillside toward the three lines lip, not trying to do anything, but get back to ComAd by the most direct route in the dark, that they stumbled upon the cinematic tripod, a duly glinting TL waffle-tipped husky, in the middle of what wasn't such a very tall or thick thicket at all. 30 April, year of the Depend adult undergarment. Steeply said, choosing Boston as your op center, after all, which to us signifies the place of the supposed entertainment's origin. Meredith, maid of Meredith made a gesture of being willing to take the time and play along, if Steeply wished. But also, the city of Boston, USA, has logic. Your closest city to the convexity, closest therefore to Quebec, within, as you say, the distance of spit. His wheelchair squeaked very slightly whenever he moved. An automobile horn somewhere between the city and themselves blew a sustained blast. It grew always colder down on the desert floor. They could feel this. He felt gratitude for his windbreaker. Steeply flicked some ashes from his cigarette with a coarse thumb gesture that was not yet feminine. But we're not any more sure that they actually do have copies. Also, does this quote anti-entertainment the film's director supposedly made to counter the lethality? Does it really also exist? This really could be some sort of game for you, the FLQ, to hold out the promise of the anti-entertainment as a chip for concessions, as some kind of remedy or antidote. La Front de la Libération de la Quebec. Rather a younger and rowdier and less implacably businesslike cell than AFR, and symbolically adopting certain cultural customs, musics, and motifs associated with Hawaii, supposedly an ironic nod to the idea that Quebec is now too a kind of annex or territory of the U.S., a Canadian province only on paper, and separated from its real Capper nation by distances of space and cultures that are unbridgeable. Of this anti-film that antidotes the seduction of the entertainment, we have no evidence except craziness or rumors. Steeply used a technical interview's device of pretending to occupy himself with small physical chores of preening and hygiene, delaying to have Marith elaborate himself more fully. The lights of the city of Tucson, with their movements and twinkling, made a globe of light, such as on ceilings at Les Salles de Danser in Val d'Or, Quebec. Marith's wife was dying slowly of ventricular restenosis. He thought, died twice. The progressive asymmetrical narrowing of one or more cardiac sinuses can be either atherosclerotic or neoplastic. Rare before continental interdependence, now the third leading cause of death among adults of Quebec and New Brunswick, and the seventh among adults of the northeastern USA, associated with chronic low level exposure to 2378 tetrachlorodebenzo PDI and trioxin compounds. Mars said, and also, why do they never send you into the field yourself, Steeply? This is to say, in appearance, the last time you were, what is it, I hope to say, a nigga? For almost 1 year? No. They say Negro in here, but I don't know if I feel comfortable saying that. Like, that seems weird. USA persons' shrugs are always as if trying to lift a heavy thing. Haitian, Steeply said. I was Haitian. Some Negroid tendencies in the persona, maybe. Maris listened to Steeply be silent. A USA coyote sounds more like a high-strung dog. The automobile's horn continued, surrounding to the men forlorn and somehow nautical out below in the dark. The feminine manner to examine the fingernails was to raise the whole hand back into view instead of merely curling the nails in over the upturned palm. Marith's corner of his lip then for an interval changed to examine his fingernails. His silence seemed always comfortable and contained. He was a competent operative. More cold air came, odd eddied breezes up in over the shelf from the desert's floor, puffs of a sudden air as if from the turning of a volume of pages. His bare arms had plucked chicken look had a plucked chicken look and bare skin in his grotesque sleeveless dress. Meredith had been aware of when, during the falling of night, Seepley had removed his absurd sunglasses, but decided the exact moment of that didn't matter, for reporting every word and gesture back to M. Fortier, again the coyote, and also another farther off, low voltage. Oh, wait. But decided the exact moment of that didn't matter for reporting every word and gesture back to M. Again the coyote, and also another farther off, perhaps to answer. The sounds were like that of domestic dogs being given low voltage. Again the coyote, and also another farther off, perhaps to answer. The sounds were like that of a domestic dog being given low voltage. Lay assassins M. Fortier and M. Brolamine, and some others of his comrades on wheel, believed Remy Marth to be edict near perfect in recall and detail. Marth, who could remember several incidents of crucial observation he had failed to later recall, knew this was not true. Marth, who could remember several incidents of crucial observation he had failed to control. Oh, okay. Human error is real. 30 April, year of the adult undergarment. Several times also, Marth calls USA to steeply, your walled nation, or your murated nation. An oil guru sits in yogic full lotus in spandex and and tank top. He's maybe 40. He's in full lotus on top of the towel dispenser just above the shoulder pull station in the weight room of the Enfield Tennis Academy. Enfield MA. Saucers and muscles protrude from him and run together so that he looks almost crustacean. His head gleams, his hair jet black and extravagantly feathered. His smile could sell things. Nobody knows where he comes from or why he's allowed to stay, but he's always in there, sitting yogic, about a meter off the rubberized floor of the weight room. His tank top says "Transcend" in silkscreen. On the back, it's got Deus Providit in Dayglow orange. It's always the same tank top. Sometimes the color of the spandex legging changes. The guru lives off the sweat of others, literally, the fluids and salts and fatty acids. He's like a beloved nut. He's an ETA institution. You do like maybe some set of benches, some leg curls, inclined abs, crunches, work up, a good hot shellac of sweat. Then, if you let him lick your arms and forehead, he'll pass on to you some little nugget of fitness guru wisdom. He's big one for a long time. His big one for a long time was, and the Lord said, "Let not the weight thou wouldst pull to thyself exceed thine own weight." His advice on conditioning and injury prevention tends to be pretty solid and is the consensus. The tongue is little and rough, but feels good, like a kitty's. It isn't like a faggy or sexual thing. Some of the girls let him too. He's harmless as they come. He supposedly went way back with Dr. Incandenza, the Academy's founder, in the past. Some of the newer kids think he's creepy and want him out of there. What kind of guru wears spandex and lives off of others' perspiration? They complain. God only knows what he does in there when their weight room's closed at night, they say. What kind of guru wears spandex and lives off of others' perspiration, they complain. God only knows what he does in there when the weight room's closed at night, they say. I don't know. What kind of piece of shit does that? What kind of piece of shit does that? I do that. But I'm not a piece of shit. Or maybe. We just have to wait and see. Man. Oh, man. Sometimes the newer kids who won't even let him near them come in and set the resistance on the shoulder pull at a weight greater than their own weight. The guru on the towel dispenser just sits there and smiles and doesn't say anything. They hunker, then they grimace, and try to pull the bar down, but like, lo, the overweighted, the they they hunker then and grimace and try to pull the bar down, but like, lo, the overweighted shoulder pull becomes a chin up. Up they go, their own bodies, towards the bar they're trying to pull down. Everyone should get at least one good look at the eyes of a man who finds himself rising toward where he wants to pull down to himself. Everyone should get at least one good look at the eyes of a man who finds himself rising toward what he wants to pull down to himself. And I like how the guru on the towel dispenser doesn't laugh at them or even shake his head sagely on its big brown neck. He just smiles, hiding his tongue. He's like a baby. Everything he sees hits him and sinks without bubbles. He just sits there. I want to be like that, able to just sit all quiet and pull life toward me, one forehead at a time. His name is supposedly Lyle. It was yours truly and C and poor Tony that crewed that day, and everything like that. The AM were wicked. The AM were wicked bright and us a bit sick. However, we scored our wake ups, boosting some items at a sidewalk sale in the Harvard Square, where it were warm upping and the snow coming off awnings. And then later, poor Tony ran across an old Patty Citizen type of his old acquaintance from like the Cape, and poor Tony got over and pretended like he would give a blowjob on the house, and we got the citizen to get in his ride with us and crewed on him, and good, and we got enough money off the Patty type to get straightened out for the true all day and crewed on him hard. And C wanted we should eliminate the Patty maps for keeps. Jesus Christ. It was yours truly and C and poor Tony that crewed that day and everything like that. I'm going to read a Clockwork Orange on here too. That the AM were wicked bright. The AM were wicked bright. And us a bit sick, however, we scored our wake-ups boosting some items at a sidewalk sale in the Harvard Square, where it were warm-upping and the snow coming off awnings. And then later, poor Tony ran across an old Patty Citizen type and his old acquaintance from like the Cape, and poor Tony got over and pretended like he would give a blowjob on the house, and we got the citizen and to get in his ride with us and crewed on him good, and we got enough money off the Patty type to get straightened out for true all day and crewed on him hard. And C wanted we should eliminate the Patty's map for keeps and everything like that and take his ride to the Understanding Slope Strip shop he knows in Chinatown. But poor Tony turns white as shit and said, by no means, and put up an argument and everything like that. And we just left the type there in his vehicle off M Drive. Wait, what? And we just left the type there in his vehicle off Mem. Doctor, we broke the jaw for insensitive not to eat no cheese. And C insisted and was not to be denied. And took off one ear, which there was a mess, and everything like that. And then C throws the ear away Doctor, we broke the jaw for insensitive, not to eat no cheese. And C insisted and was not to be denied, and took off one ear, which there was a mess and everything like that. And then C throws away the ear in a dumpster. So yours truly like, so what exact pernt to that like? What was the exact pernt to that like? The dumpster was with the dumpsters out by Steve's Donuts. It's almost like they did it because they wanted to do it. It's almost like they chose to do that to this man. But let's keep reading it. The dumpster was with the dumpsters out by Steve's Donuts in the Enfield Square. We go back to the Britain projects to cop, and Roy Tony was always there on his bench in the playground in late AM. But now all the this nigga's wild, yo. All the Project Nigers was awake and out in the playground, and it was tense, but it was daytime and everything like that, and we cop half a bundle from Roy Tony, and we go down to the library at Copley where we stash our personal works when we crewed, and we went into the men's room where there were several works on the floor already that already got that early and got straight in the stall, and C's and yours truly had beef about who shot 3 and who got 2, and we made poor Tony give us up his third bag, and then but we had to cop for that night and tomorrow. AM still, which was XMA's, and had to cop in advance. It's a never ending struggle. A full-time job to stay straight, and there's no vacation. For XMA's at any time, it's a fucking bitch of a life. Don't let anybody get over on you different. And back we go to the Harvard Square. However, on arrival, poor Tony wanted he should hang for lunchtime with his red leather fags in the bow and arrow, and pretty much I can't tolerate fags when alone, but together yours truly I can't fucking stand fags, and yours truly and C said fuck this shit, and we screwed out and go up to the central square where it was cool offing and the awnings refreezing and everything like that, and snowing, and boosted NyQuil at the CVS drug where we go to the mop aisle and employ a mop handle in tilting the mirror over the NyQuil aisle, and boosted NyQuil in C's coat and got messed up on NyQuil and scoring book bag for a foreign slope student type kid on the Red Line platform, but it only had books and discs, and the disc case was fucking plastic. And to a dumpster with it goes. But also at the same time, we come up and run into a Keely Vinoy that was working her corner by the dumpster, by Cheapo Records in the square, by the email place, and she's dope sick, having a conversation with Equus and another man, and Equus said Stokely Darkstar just got free tested again at the Fenway, and confirmed a Big Boot 8.8. He's got the virus for sure. And Purple Boy said Dark Star said how if he was going down, he didn't give a shit and wasn't going to give a shit if he gave some other the virus through transmission. And word was out about it. And don't share Stokely Darkstar's works. Don't use works off Stokely Darkstar. No matter how sick you are, even if you're dying for it, get other works. Like C said, anything would count in your mind when you're sick, and copped and was minus work and Darkstar had works. You're sick and had copped and was minus works and Darkstar had works. Well, we all, every crew with heads left, have personal works for only ourselves that we use except blown out old hoes like Kelly and Purple Boy. Their man takes the money and their works, and he's the only one can give them their shots and keep Keely just as dope sick. 24/7 for incentive for her to make him more money and everything like that. There's nothing worse than a pimp, and Boston pimps are the worst. They're 10 times worse than New York City pimps that are super set to be heartless in New York City, where yours truly peddled ass in the Columbus Square for a time of my youth, like Stokely Darkstar, before departing for green pastures. And we had a conversation, but we're coming down, and it was getting dark and snowing for white XMAs. And if we didn't crew before like 2200 Roy Tony, and if we didn't crew before 2200, Roy Tony niggas would be too drunk to keep them from beefing with us. And there'd be a beef and everything like that if we go to cop after 2200. And who needs a grief? So back we redline to that Harvard Square, and all that foreign students are in the bars, and we locate poor Tony smoking hash with fags of Aubon pain, and say, let's roll a foreign student stuck here for Xmas in the bars and cop before 2200. And so we all go on the ice from the frozen melted snow to the bow and arrow in the square with poor Tony and Lola's sister and Susan T. Cheese, who I fucking can't stand, and got in there and made Susan T. Cheese buy beer. And we wait, and no students are leaving alone to roll, but an older type individual who body could see is over. The fuck? Who I can't fucking stand, and got in there and made Susan T. Cheese buy beers, and we wait, and no students are leaving alone to roll, but an older type individual who anybody could see is no student but is legless on shots, alone at the bar, fucking shattered slump. Lola's sister, to screw, she's crews with poor Tony. Sometimes, but not if it's wet. Works, and with C's involvements, it always wet works. And yours truly, I inform Susan T. Cheese, she knew better than not to screw, as well as the older individual day parts shattered, and holding onto walls in a high class and promising coat for possibility of money and prints, his old nose away in that and everything like through and bow and arrow, window C wipes the steam off, and we're like, Jesus, it's a never ending struggle. No, and has a conversation with the Santa Claus ringing a bell for the kettle. And we're like, Jesus, it's a never ending struggle to wait and cop. But after a while, finally, after stiffing the Santa Claus, we watch him. He picks a direction, finally, at last, up Mass Ave toward the central square of foot. And poor Tony beats it around the block and gets up in front of him. Around the block on the ice in his fucking heels, and feather snake around his neck, and gets him somehow. Poor Tony always knows how. Over the dumpster alley by Bay Bank off Sherman Street, and yours truly and C crew on the individual and roll up on him. C messes up his older map to a larger degree, and we leave him in no condition to eat cheese in a snowdrift of material under the dumpster. And Seagans wants to siphon out a vehicle on Mass Ave and set him on fire. But he has $400 on his person, and then some, and a coat with a furry collar, and a watch with a really scored, and C even goes so far to take the non-student's shoes, which they don't fit, and the dumpster they go. But back we go to the Britain projects, but it's just 2200. It's too late. Roy Tony hasn't got his piss boys out yet. He's not open for commerce, and yet it's like a nigga convention in the playground of the Breton projects, with their glass pipes and their Crown Royale in purple bags and everything like that in the playground of projects, as they smell they smell we're holding the kind of money amounts they will accrue on us in numbers. They're animals at night with their purple velvet bags and pea dope and ready rock crack. One large nigga in a Patriots hat has a heart incident and down he goes on the blacktop by the swing, set right in front of one right in front of us, and none of his other brothers unquote go so far to do anything. He lays there, animals at night, and we screw out with rickety stick speed from the Britain projects as we converse. And poor Tony wants to just go over the line to the Enfield Square and try and just cop P dope from Delphina down by the Empire hangars. Or else, what else hang with the fags at Steve's Donuts? And here, who else is holding weight at Enfield or Alston? And everything like that. But Delphina's P is from Bunk the Word, is out and about. That's all. All Manitol and Quai 9, you might as well fucking cop X-Lax or Schweppes and see dope slaps poor Tony and see wants to redline down to Chinatown, but poor Tony turns white as shit, says Chinatown's too dear in money and everything like that. Even for like bundles. Dr. Wu is 200, but at least it's all good but we have 400 and then some. And see print we can fucking well afford woos. Well-known excellent skeet for once at Xmas, and poor Tony stamps a high heel and says, but how we've got enough money to stay straight and got Lola's sister straight for Xmas, and all lay up and not have to never-ending struggle at Xmas. And 2 or more days after that, if we don't blow it on Xmas, Eve in Chinatown, instead of waiting, which is good, but then has any that, and is all piss and vinegar, for woe, and starting with the shivers and with the noise, mucus all around and everything, like that. C is not to be denied, and we say we are screwing down to Chinatown, and if poor Tony don't want to come, he can take like a giant breath and hold it in the square until we get back, and we'll cop for him. And poor Tony says he might be dick-sucking fag, but he's not a starry-eyed moron. And so off we go, and everything like that, with 400 on the orange line. And through a fucked up circumstance, yours truly and C almost end up raping an older type nurse in a white nurse's uniform and coat on the train, but we don't. And poor Tony seems white and detracted on the train playing with his feather snake, and says he seems in his mind made to recall an involvement in some type of deal where Dr. Wu might have got slightly over on and burnt, and that maybe down in Chinatown we could err on the side of low profiles and try to cop some. Where else except from Wu's? Nigga's pussy. Nigga doesn't want to go to Chinatown because he's pussy. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Dr. Wu might have got over on and burnt, and that may be down in Chinatown. We could err on the side of low profiles and try to cop some. Where else except from the Wus? Except Dr. Wu is who we know. C is Wu's former acquaintance from crewing with Slopes and North Shore for Whitey Sorkin in the days of his youth. C is not to be denied. And so at the Orange Line TS stop, we grab a fat cab to about 2 blocks from Hung To. We grab a fat cab to about 2 blocks from Hung Toys and screw out of the cab at a light. And the thing with fat cabbies is they can't run after you. And poor Tony is a pisser to watch tear-assing it down the street in high heels with a feather stole. Poor Tony runs right by the front of Hung's Toys. This is a prior agreement to wait for us low profile down the street, and yours truly and C go in Hung's Toys where they don't open till 2:30 and sell tea, unquote, like 100 proof tea, till all hours, and everything like that, and never get inspected because Dr. Wu has arrangements with Chinatown's finest. Xmas is non-celebrated. Xmas is non-celebrated. I'm so bored. Xmas is non-celebrated in Chinatown. Okay. Yeah. I feel like that's enough reading for today. I'm bored. Who knows? I could do VR shit. 11/11 make up. Damn it, I missed it. I already made my wish though. That shit came true. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you whenever.